That's one of those things that's funny, like for entertainment. I think that, I think sometimes people like to hear about it, but it's something that they never really understand unless they have to deal with. Just like, I don't know how annoying that dude in your office is with the printer breaks every day. It's like what most people don't know about shows, even if they're like high-end Broadway productions. Once you get behind the curtain, everything is scotch tape, rubber bands, and please don't fucking break.
It's the lowest. They want to spend as little money as possible.
You spend $1 million on your star, you won't spend $5 on glue.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I can't talk too much shit. This one fell off. It's taped up with scotch tape right now instead of the actual adhesive strip.
Good enough works, and this is like my former it's still one of my hobbies scientifically is evolution. I love following it. And people also talk about the survival of the fittest, which is so far from what that means or what Darwin never even said evolution. He hated that term. Yeah. But what I'm getting to is that in evolution, in biology, good enough works. You don't have to be the fittest. You just have to survive and reproduce. Yeah. It's a really low bar.
Yeah, that's very true.
And that's the rule for life. I mean, as I get older, that's what I said. I kind of feel like the rule for life is not like, and as a performer, I've always been like in my head one of those people that's like, oh shit, that shit sucked. People come up, I loved your show. Yeah, but I fucked this up and I fucked it up. Like, you got to get away from that because just like biology, good enough is enough. Yeah. Crowd's happy, be happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you got to enjoy the simple things, but you also got to like strive to better, not always settle for mediocre.
I feel like it's great to strive, but don't turn striving to to me. It's the same thing as like hustle culture. When people are like I'm hustling, I'm like, you're turning everything into a capitalist endeavor. You are sucking the joy out of anything that you like. Yeah, I'm like, because I had a brief period of time where I was the right age and the right person, right nerd at the right time, where playing video games competitively. I was early on. I was doing LAN parties, and I actually made a little bit of money playing in like arcade tournaments and stuff. But I very quickly realized to be very good at this, to be very good at anything, you have to suck the joy out of it.
Yeah, and it's finding that balance where you don't lose all of the joy. But even like, I mean, I've never played I'm young in the comedy sense moving up, but I mean, I played at like almost the highest level you could play at in football. I played Division I college football.
Yeah, that's huge.
And the jump between like junior college football and D1 football, the fun they suck out of it, like you were saying, is insane. By the end of my football career, I hated football. Right? Like they took every ounce of fun. I get it. Practice games, everything about it. I was like, fuck this. Like I don't want to be.
What'd you play?
Defensive end. So I was about like 40 pounds heavier than I am right now.
But I've got a cousin, and this is that you remember the when we did the European leagues of American football. Yeah. He played for the Barcelona Dragons.
Oh, that's such a cool experience.
Right. Oh yeah. Like he'll tell you that it was the greatest time of his life. But yeah, I just remember talking because he played D1 and then and it was it's pretty obvious I think for a lot of people like you're not on the cusp, right? You either know you're going to go to the NFL or you don't, right?
Yeah, it's pretty. There's like the 7 people that it's a possibility and maybe 1 or 2 of them will. The other 50 people are like, I just didn't want to pay for school, and that's kind of what it is.
And I feel like because we haven't talked in depth about this, but I got to watch it. He's like 2 years younger than me, so it was very contemporary for me at the time. And him watching it and being like, yeah, you're probably not going to make the NFL. If you really bust your ass, you could make practice team. Yeah, which is still a huge achievement. A
huge thing,
people will shit on it back home too. They'd be like, oh, you're the practice team. You're like, motherfucker, you try and get on the practice team for anything.
No, exactly. It's portrayed. The practice squad is always shit on like it's some negative thing. Dude, if you're
need you.
If you're on the practice squad for 3 years, you get a pension for the rest of your life starting at 50. Yep. If you're on the practice squad for 5 years, you get a pension at 35.
Wow.
Like, and all you got to do is like, yes, it sucks that you're not on the team in the games, but like you're there for practice Monday through Thursday, which like NFL practice is mostly in jerseys and gym shorts anyway. They're not
plays
tackling.
And strategies and shit. Yeah, you're supposed to have already done all your hard work in the gym and coming up.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, that's what he was like. I remember there's something like somebody said to him like, "Oh, well, the European League, Barcelona Dragons." He's like, "Okay, cool, sure, yeah," because it's play football for money.
Yeah,
and the answer is always yes, right? Yeah, unless your body is broken and you've already had a career or something else, like the answer is yes.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's kids on my team that would have killed to play for the Antarctica football league if they were starting that shit up, like let alone the European one. So I totally get what you're saying. I'm gonna do the intro real quick
Cool,
to the
yeah.
podcast. This will be like a cold opening. I want to make sure it's Erik Sprague.
Sprague.
Sprague. Okay.
Sprague.
All right. Sprague. I want to make sure I say it right. And then your book is Once More Through the Modified Looking Glass. Right?
That is correct. Way to
Make
go.
sure I plug it.
Damn.
All right.
Research and shit.
Yeah. I like to make the podcast good, fun. It's fun for my guests.
You
too.
violated the first podcast rule, which is you're putting in effort.
What exactly? All right, I'm gonna do the intro in 3, 2, 1, and welcome back to the Your Last Resort podcast with your host Brandon Lejean. This week I have a special guest who, if you're watching, needs no introduction, but he has a book called Once More Through the Modified Looking Glass. You can get that on Amazon. My guest, Erik Sprague. I said that right?
That is right.
And you all might also know him as the Lizard Man. Famous
That's
from...
probably the easier to go. That's the hook, right?
I'll probably rotate between calling you Erik and just not using...
You can
you
can say whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, you're not obviously someone who's like very easily offended or bothered by stuff. So I get what you were saying. We were already kind of just talking about some random stuff, but I like to kick every podcast off with a would you rather at the start of it, just kind of get the guests thinking. So
nice icebreaker party game type of thing.
Yeah, some people, not me and you, but some of the guests I have on get a little nervous in front of a mic, a camera, and all that. It, like you said, breaks the ice.
Do you have a lot of performers on? Obviously, I was like, not that you would probably expect, but I haven't watched your podcast.
No. Most of the guests haven't. I get
now.
it.
I will. If you want me to watch your podcast, you're gonna have to have me on first because I don't care how big you are. I'm just like,
No, exactly. That's the weird thing. Like podcasts are so big now, but they're still so niche. Also, like there's people that are my age that have never listened to a second of a podcast in their life, but there's also people that listen to 10 a week. Like it's like that. I have all kinds of different people. I mean, I have people on from like rappers, producers, comedians. I've had family members on in early episodes.
Right. Got to fill that slot.
Yeah. Like my dad, my mom have been on the podcast, friends from school, but just mostly different artists and performers. I mean, I've had people, I've had on clothing companies, who run by a friend, we've had on musicians.
The reason I ask is because you're talking about like breaking the ice with a guest and getting started like that. And I feel like what happens, it's funny because I've seen it. I can look back and see it happen with myself, but I've seen it happen to other people a lot more where they get in there, like you look at somebody and you're like, oh, you'd be a great guest. And you see how they are on stage. But when they get here, right, their brain starts working in different levels. They start thinking about, how am I presenting? I've got to mention my plug. I really used to see it badly with like other people when I do stuff for like Ripley's and Guinness. Because these are, for the most part, these are not professional entertainers. They've never thought about the theory and philosophy of what they're doing. It's just somebody showed up with a camera and was like, I love what you're doing. Let me film it. They're like, oh boy. But then they start thinking like, oh, I'm supposed to plug that I'm going to be at Ripley's, and nothing's organic anymore. They forget how to have a conversation, and it's because their brain is trying to do two different things.
Yeah, it's that you lose the podcasts are cool because they're genuine. Like the conversation that this started with, we're talking about the European Football League, such a random ass thing, but people like to listen to it because they can relate. It's a genuine topic, and like you said, when it becomes this promotional thing, it makes it weird. It just turns into watching like Fox News or these really awkward like news and like really corporate things.
They're following all the structure conventions, but they don't have any substance with it.
Exactly, yeah.
You're just like, oh, you're just feeding me this stuff. And that's, I think that's an important thing about not letting the joy get sucked out. We were talking about sucking the joy out of stuff like get better. It's like, if you want to be a professional pitch man or pitch person, whatever, then you're going to study all the neuro-linguistic programming routines, all the syllable counts, all this like that. But if you're doing that like in a pod, to me, I always thought the pitch and the appeal of a podcast was this is two people having a conversation that you are now let in on.
Exactly.
This conversation
100%.
would normally happen, you and me sitting at a bar at a table, and nobody else would get to be part of this. Maybe somebody sitting at the table beside is like, oh man, I heard them talking about this and it was kind of interesting, but I didn't want to barge in. It's like, well, this is your way to, without interrupting, barge in and get to hear the conversation. So don't be that structured thing. Don't do your setup pitch line. Don't do that shit.
Exactly. Like I plug your book at the start. I want people to check it out. I want people to, like, if they're a fan of me, become a fan of you, vice versa, stuff like that. And then you have this section at the end where it's like, hey man, the floor is yours, plug it. But no one wants to just hear an hour-long ad. It's weird. It'd be weird if you were just like every so often you pause and you're like, and check out my new book. Like it would be disingenuous.
And
like
it's like tell you about weird too. Like one of the things I remember, this wasn't a podcast, this was radio, and I think it speaks to bad radio. And I'm not going to out who the person is because I'm not that person. Because it's a little bit of a name drop, and it's somebody that I do like. It's just they weren't good on radio, so it's not their fucking fault. But I was literally on their show promoting an event, and it was an easy thing for me to go in. And they responded to me doing one of my sideshow stunts in studio by saying, "Wow, that was amazing. But you know what this is missing? Relating it back to me," because it was an ego project for that person. And they basically just announced, now we're going to get an anecdote from me that vaguely relates to what this person who came into the studio to promote something is doing. Now, it's perfectly reasonable to bring me in and say, hey, you're going to be at the show this weekend. What can we see? And me to give you a teaser.
Yeah.
That's no big deal. But then we can get to know each other. But instead he goes, let me tell you about the time and I've got nothing because I'm like, I wasn't there. Like, dude, you just told me a story from your childhood with no real connection.
Exactly. Yeah. People, it's just the problem is people become selfish. Everything becomes like, well, that's even the thing too is I wanted to ask you about this eventually. I'm sure is like you have a unique look. You're famous. You know that. I'm sure you kind of deal with people who just want you on for like clout in that, or like, like popular, like you were saying, where it become just talking more about it being disingenuous. Like if the only reason someone has you on is just because of your name, it's that same where it's like, no, like you want it to just be a friendly conversation or an interview or something like that. Yeah,
those are the people that they're usually pretty obvious up front. It's not like you can't spot the truck coming down the road at you.
Yeah.
But the other thing is too is that I'm the sort of person that'll like take that as a challenge and be like, I can make this work, or I can make this good for me. Like you're an idiot, but there were egomaniacal moments in my past where I've been like, this is a train wreck, but I can save it. My presence will be everything that you need in yourself. And it's such a garbage thing, but there really is the people who are like, they want to bring it like, we've got the lizard man in studio. Yeah, we got the lizard man. Do something. Or do something like, hey, we got the lizard man. Like, you don't have anywhere to go with this because you don't care about anything. Like I said, that reveals their motivation, right? When all they can keep saying is, hey, we got him here. So what's it like being a lizard man? I'm like, you haven't even thought to ask an unshallow question at all.
Yeah.
You're literally going for the sound bites, but you're repeating them. And that's very much to me, it's a radio show type of morning radio thing where like, we're going to be here for the next 90 minutes. Like I used to have to do this all the time for Jägermeister. And it was really great for me because I could benefit from it.
Yeah.
Because I was always getting the press and the exposure.
Yeah.
And in those days I was a tour host, and the bands, right? You're out on tour, and Slipknot, none of them want to get up at 6 a.m. and go to a radio station and promote the fucking show. I mean, Corey's taken on like a workaholic sort of aspect since then, but like nobody wants to do it. I was the guy, as I was the host, and they would send me, I'd do it. So I got all the morning radio spots.
Oh,
okay. That is really, that sort of me being willing to do it and feeling and actually enjoying it was it was self-serving, but I wasn't trying to be self-serving at the time. It just turned out that what I was doing was very, very good for me career-wise. Yeah. And I look back at it and be like, oh shit, that was a good idea. It wasn't even an idea. Yeah. Like I can't take credit for it.
But that's such a cool opportunity. Like you were saying, just bands and pressers that don't want to do it, like
send the host.
Yeah.
I can talk about all you guys. It's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning isn't the most ideal, but if you just go, oh, this is my job.
Staying up till 5 or 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
The drugs and everything that was out of the touring in the 90s. We didn't do that, but I might have had some chemical assistance and the fact that I could go back to bed at 10 in the morning and not get up until a 6 o'clock show open.
That's true. Yeah, living the rock star life. That's so cool.
When you're living on a tour bus, you can really tailor your schedule around your vices. Like you need a short window of a couple hours where you do real work performing, but the rest of it is all scheduling it around your drinking and other activities.
Yeah, fuck. I guess that's true. That's so cool though. Like in the end, you get to look back. Like that's so sick. You did radio for Slipknot and other people. That's super. That's just a once in a lifetime type experience.
It's a good resume credit line.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so the would you rather that we're going to get into is,
that's right.
Would you rather have 100% of knowledge of what's in space or what's in the ocean? So the ocean.
Well,
is,
the ocean is in space. Everything's in space.
I guess you're right.
I don't mean to Rick. I just had the Rick and Morty line. They're like, "There's snakes in space. There's literally everything in space."
That's awesome. Yeah.
As a physics geek, that line really spoke to me.
Okay,
I love that
fair
one
enough.
too.
We're not
But
the most educated podcast here, you know.
I get the distinction you're making, but I have to be a jerk about it.
No, I like it.
That's the nerd in me is very much that you're technically correct. The most important form of correct.
All right, I like that. So would you like anything? Would you rather have 100% knowledge about everything outside of Earth or about the ocean?
I feel like the easier answer is to say everything else out in space because it's so much more there. But I feel like the practical answer might be the ocean because that's what's right here. Like, if I learned about something that's 80 million light years away, it's nothing I can use.
Matter,
You can be like, oh, we use it in this broader sense. It's sort of the argument they use for space exploration, right? They're like, but the research funds, like, guess how quick we would have gotten there if we were researching that specifically.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, I like that we get new materials as we try to build spaceships, but what if we were just trying to build a material that would work for our problems on Earth already? It is one of those weird things, the direction of politicization. So, at the end of the day, I think right now, and it's probably because we're in plague times, I'm driven by more practical considerations. Maybe something in the ocean will save us. So I would take the ocean thing.
You're such a nice, thoughtful person. Me and most of my guests are like, I want to see the fish with the big light on his forehead, or I want to.
Those are fucking wild. They're giant too, man. They're as big as us.
So scary. Or like, I want a fucking alien. Like stupid ass answers. You're like, well, maybe I could save people. Look, I have a degree in philosophy, and for a while I thought I was going to do ethics professionally. And the byproduct of that is, even though I'm not even close to the most ethical person you'll ever meet. Yeah.
But I understand the argument for ethics, and I can repeat it.
Yes.
I've learned to play the game. I know how to look like a good person better than anybody.
Okay. I like it. Yeah. No, that's a good skill to have. Not a bad skill by any means. Yeah. Do you believe in aliens? Or what's your thought on aliens? My
thought on aliens is that the mathematical probability of there being other life in the universe, given the nature of infinity, is that they've got to be out there.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is the odds of them ever having any contact or impact upon us is so infinitesimally low.
Yeah.
That I'm like, do aliens exist? Sure, probably. Have aliens been to Earth while we've been here? No. Fuck no.
Yeah, no. I just like because it's there's that like show Ancient Aliens or whatever where they think like
it was aliens.
Yeah, and it's just like
I love that meme.
I hate it because it's just they're like, well, the aliens were here and the Mayans were more advanced. I'm like, wasn't the life expectancy like 30 years? Like you got married at 10.
Weren't they ripping out each other's hearts on the top of giant pyramids? Dude. I mean, look, I'm not saying I think advanced and primitive are loaded words because of other bullshit in them, but I think we can objectively say that if your culture is still cutting out someone's beating heart while they're alive, there is room for growth.
Yeah, that shit's not coming back in 2030 because we're like, oh man, they were ahead of their time. We've been sleeping on this shit. More rain for California.
Oh, I get it now. That's not a human sacrifice. They actually did living heart transplants. Now we're up to that. Like, fuck you.
Yeah, that's bored, bro.
That's the shit that really kind of gets me because I hate pop science reporting anyway, right? Because the truth is usually the opposite of the headline where they're like, we've discussed, gravity turned on its head. Not even fucking close, dude.
Yeah.
No. The new theory overturns magnetism. Nope, not even remotely. And that's it. Or it'd be like in one laboratory setting that it's taken us literally all of human history to produce. We were able to force this result. That's. That's just,
people are people are crazy and the thoughts they have. It's just this shit's wild. I'm pretty much on the same grounds as you, the aliens, where it's like you said, there's no way, like you said, based off infinity and all that we're the only people that we
only
humans,
life,
humans, whatever the aliens are called, but the human genome was just the luckiest. Where we're like, we hit the lottery, only us, and so. Yeah, but did they come and build the pyramid so people in 2020 would be confused about it? No, they had better shit to do.
And it's the thing, too, is that when people look back at the past, it's really an insightful observation, or it was when it first happened. Now it's become so cliched it's a meme, but it's literally Western white suburban people looking at something that they can't do and saying it must be aliens.
Yeah.
There's no way that the ancient Egyptians could have done it. I'm like, okay, first of all, you understand that Pythagoras, right?
Yeah.
The Pythagorean theorem, the way that we get like, and a lot of other stuff like that he basically led a mathematic cult historically. This is math that the people saying that there was aliens can't do.
Yeah.
Right? This is, I mean, it's advanced algebra. It's still shit you should be able to do in elementary school, but it's algebra. So when somebody who can't do algebra tells me it had to be fucking aliens, I'm going to look at them and go like, no, it has to be that you're an idiot.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. There's just, I don't know. I get the fun, though, in believing it. I understand.
Oh, well, look, I think it's a lot more fun to believe in aliens. And then it becomes that question of the standard thing. It's the old skeptic society. Is like, what's the harm in letting people believe bullshit?
Yeah.
Well, it's fine until they start saying shit like this magic water will cure your cancer.
Yeah.
Right? And then the question goes, well, does believing it was aliens cause any real damage? And now it becomes a more abstract argument about, well, you're literally telling these people that their ancestors were incompetent monkeys who needed an alien to come do the shit that they did on their own. And that's a little bit insulting, right?
No, 100%. Because, like, all those, like if that's, like, where you're from, like, having, like, the pyramids or the Mayan structure shit like that, like, those are, like you were saying, you said it earlier, and I had never heard someone say it, but you said, there's a fine line between, you said, like, primitive and advanced, or something.
There's a lot of baggage on the primitive advanced, but yeah, when you're still doing stuff like cutting out hearts or say there's room for growth, like how are you going to label it? Or that's what the thing is, like, do you want to call 1940s America an advanced society? I mean, we're pretty racist.
Yeah, we're pretty shitty. Like, we're
pretty segregated.
In technology for the times, but we weren't an advanced.
This is becoming a little more philosophical, but I think it's funny because it relates to what we're saying. Is like there's this whole idea that people have that if you're enlightened, if you're advanced, if you're mature, that you're mature about everything. It's like intelligence. There's different kinds of intelligence, right? You can be a brilliant astrophysicist and not get evolution at all.
Yeah.
Right? You just because you're smart at one thing, and the thing is, just because you're advanced or mature about something, I mean, you can be the most progressive person in the world on sex and gender and still be a racist jackass.
Yeah.
Right? It's like just because you get one doesn't mean you get the other. So it's
That's
it's really hard sometimes for people to be like, oh, this is primitive, that's advanced. Like, well, everybody just calm down. Like, some people get to some places faster than others, and sometimes you do have to be understanding. Like, I'm not saying obviously if it's something really bad like racism, you don't let them go on lynching people or whatever. But you can be like, hey, I think the way that you educate there is you try to draw the analogy between it, right? You say, well, that wouldn't be cool if you're ahead on gender, right? You'd be like, you wouldn't accept them saying that about women or men as a generalization, but you accept them saying it about Mexicans or blacks. Don't you see how it's an overgeneralization type of thing? And sometimes that will break through, but a lot of times it doesn't. Like what we were talking about with like your ancestors, right?
Yeah.
We see it right here. Texas is a great example of this going horribly wrong with the history textbooks, right?
Yeah.
Because people have grown up with this lie that a bunch of white people came here and saved Texas from the ignorant Mexicans and Native Americans and turned it into a paradise. Whereas what the actual truth seems to be is a bunch of white people showed up to what was a much better situation run by Native Americans and then sort of made it bad, and then it got better and it's gone back and forth, right? But as soon as you change anything, people are like, no, that's not what I know. I'm not going to do it. Like, well, that's what you're doing when you say aliens built the pyramid, man. Don't you see how that's the same goddamn thing? You're denying their ancestors the credit for what they did. And now white people here, even though it's not credit they should get, right? Because, again, there was a civilization here. There were people here.
We did not discover a place that was already discovered.
You didn't show up and go, shit, this place would be nice once we fucking pull the weeds and build some houses.
Yeah, it'd be like you getting on this podcast. You're like, this is my podcast now. Not yours. I discovered this. This is the first time I've been here, so now it's mine.
Or if you were to take credit for podcasts, you'd be like, we're listening to my podcast. Incidentally, podcasts are a thing that I invented 2 years ago.
Exactly.
And people would be like, whoa.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's gotten to the point, though, and this to me is, and ever since I was a little kid, one of my sort of, and it's growing up Reagan era, 70s and 80s, the end of the world sort of thing. There's like overpopulation is, I've always been like, fuck, there's too many people. There's no ethical way to get rid of any of them, but there's too goddamn many of them. The thing that happens when you have too many people, right, is like, it used to be there was only one Einstein, right? Well, now every country has an Einstein because that's the good side. The bad side is no matter how dumb the thing you say is, someone will go on. If you were to claim, right now, you could do it this episode, to be like, I invented podcasts, and mine, everybody else is ripping me off. That sounds absurd. you would if you just kept saying it enough, after a while, you'd have at least a couple dozen people who were like, well, he fucking invented them.
Yeah.
And people would be like, well, what about the ones that happened all the years before he did his? Well, they did it, but they got to the game first, but he invented the concept is what I'm saying. He didn't actualize it. There's people, this happens in stunt performing all the time. People are like, you're ripping off my act. When'd you do it? Well, I haven't done it, but I had the idea first. Like, dude, ideas don't mean shit. People need to get over that one of the worst things that's ever happened for humanity in terms of like law and creativity is intellectual property laws where people think ideas have value. They don't.
No, yeah.
Doing shit has value. Getting up on stage and saying your idea out loud changes it completely, turns it into a whole new thing. But yeah, there's so many people that turn around like, oh, that's my joke. I had that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you do with it? Nothing. Fuck you.
Exactly.
I have no sympathy for idea people.
Yeah.
Either do something with it or don't.
Yeah, you can't just hold on to something and claim like there's you take ownership in the action of like actually doing it or writing,
actually getting up and telling the joke.
It's so vague for me to be like, oh man, you're doing a premise Joe Rogan on like how plane tickets are annoying. I had that idea 3 years ago. Did you ever do a bit on it? Do we talk about it? Well, no, I never did. Then it's not yours. Like it's not the same.
Well, I think there's just a certain look. Some people are fucking scum. Right? Yeah. There are some bad people. When I say bad, I'm not even talking about like murders and rapists and stuff. I'm talking about people that just have bad attitudes and they're not going to change. They're the people that steal jokes and steal acts. Like that. And what they figured out was, or what I think kind of happened, Rogan's good example, like when he called out Mencia, back in the day when we were all like, fuck yeah, Rogan's doing a good thing. He called out Mencia for stealing one of Ari's jokes. And he literally had the tape of Ari saying it when Ari was working with Mencia. So it's like, don't fucking tell me you never heard me say this joke. I've got tape of him saying it as your opener. But then people jump on that and they're like, oh, well, that guy's doing a joke that I had the idea for. Like, whoa. No, unless you actually wrote a joke and performed it for an audience, you have no claim whatsoever to that idea.
No one snuck into your mind and stole the joke while you're sleeping. It's not fucking Freddy Krueger.
Right, the CIA isn't like, they're like, hey man, you should have heard this guy's Type 5 in his dreams last night. I'm stealing it.
Exactly. It's absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't, I get you. Now, all right, I got to do this part. I wrote it down as I call it basic bitch questions.
Basic bitch questions.
I want obviously you're famous for being the Lizard Man, and I'm sure you've answered 1 million questions about it, and I'm gonna ask some of them. But I want for people who maybe aren't familiar.
Yeah, you got to cover some of the standard ground, and like we were talking about before, there's a natural way to do it. The whole thing is like, and it's when people always say they're like, I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked you before, whether it's an interview or not. I get this like when people just like walk up to the bar like, hey man, can I ask you? I know you've heard this before. I'm like, you don't have to premise it with that because as long as you are genuinely asking a question you don't know the answer to, it won't bother me. But if I start, when I start getting the sense that you're going through motions or you're trying, like with a casual person, like a fan on the street, they're usually doing it whether they realize it or not to prolong the interaction.
Yeah.
It becomes meaningless chit chat where I'm like, dude, I'm happy to talk to you about something I'm passionate about or you're passionate about. But if you're just going to be like, hey, weather, sports teams, whatever, I'm like, don't drag it out. We can have a genuine moment in 2 seconds or we can have a genuine moment for 2 hours. Let it be what it is.
That's really true. That's a good like message for myself, for anyone listening. Just that like you said, if it's genuine, no one's annoyed by it. Okay, well then I have some genuine questions for you. So when did you first make, like, obviously start getting the tattoos, the transition? When did you gain the interest into it? I read something about that you would kind of go around like the book sections in the library, and you got into it that way.
That was sort of the, if I ever managed to sell the movie rights to my life, if anyone makes a story, this would be a scene that has to be in the movie. And conceptually and artistically, I was thinking about transforming myself and doing things like body painting and costumes way before I got into had the tattoo idea. But so that, and I say way before, this is early in my life, probably around like early teens. My Halloween costume started getting very conceptual. We were like, I didn't want to be, a specific demon from a movie or something like that. I wanted to be this conceptual demon I'd come up with in my head, and I didn't have the skills. I wasn't even good at communicating what I was trying to do, because my mom and dad would have helped me. I probably would have had some wild kick-ass costume if I had just had a good way to explain to them. But I was raised in a sort of a do-it-yourself kind of manner. So
Yeah.
a lot of times I pushed away help, especially when
Yeah.
I was even into my 20s. I did some idiot things where I was like, oh man, I should have let that guy help build me because he knows how to build shit.
Yeah.
I barely slapped something together.
Yeah.
But anyway, so at that time, like early teens, I'm starting to get into like full body costumes and paintings and character ideas. I'm 18 years old. I go away to school. I'm at Hartwick College in Oneonta, New York.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm doing something that I used to do in my little public high school library, which is just wander the shelves and like pull books out. It's bibliomancy. If people know like weird superstition stuff, I put no stock in that sort of thing, but I love to play with it. Like I had an I Ching phase where I throw it. I mean, I used to read my horoscope. I completely believe that's bullshit and has no but it's still fun, right? It's
of course.
quality of life. Again, we're going back to I don't really believe in the bullshit, so it's not hurting anyone. It's not hurting me. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
Right. So I pulled this book off the shelf, and it's The Japanese Tattoo. And I hadn't seen, at that point in my life, I'm 18 years old. I know tattooing from the carnival. I'm a military kid. I've seen military tattoos all my life. That's what I think tattooing is. Now I see full body concepts that just blow my mind. I'm like, I've never seen tattooing done this way. I didn't know you could do tattooing this way.
Yeah.
And I find references in there to some of the old completely tattooed attractions like the Great Omi, Prince Constantine stuff. So I start learning and researching my freshman year of college, and I have this sort of, mini epiphany, which I'm like, oh, the shit I'm trying to do by painting myself or making costumes would be even more impactful if I did it permanently, if I surgically altered. And I started learning about 70s artists like Carolee Schneemann and Orlan, Vito Acconci, Chris Burden. These became like, so this is the 1990, I go to like my freshman year in college, and my new dream is to become the pinnacle of 1970s performance art. My goals have never been that great commercially or career-wise. I've always been shooting at the wrong target, but I have had a target and I have been shooting at it, and I've been hitting it.
You got to make your own path.
But it's sort of when I go back, it's like when they say, explain your favorite movie in a horrible way or explain what you do in a dumb way. I'm like, explain my success in a way that makes it sound like it shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I tried to do something that was barely successful for a moment in the 70s as a career in the 90s. Performance art.
That's so funny I love when you can people do the describe something good in a bad way. Because when you describe it like that, you'd be like, what? And then, but you obviously made
it. And then the kicker for that one is like, okay, so what happened when that failed? Okay, when that didn't work out, I realized I wasn't going back far enough. I said, wait, I don't want to try and do something that was successful for a moment in the 70s. I've got to shoot for success that was something that only 2 or 3 people managed in the 40s, being a tattooed man in a circus, right? Yeah. So it's like, my goals keep getting more esoteric and further back.
That's awesome. So when did you get the first your tattoo for the lizard man?
Well, I've only ever been tattooed to be the lizard man.
Okay, so you don't have any other there's no tramp stamp or anything like that.
No, nothing like that. There's little things that like going back like design wise. Like, as an artist, I'm growing. And you should just like you should look back on your first year of jokes and be like, holy shit, I was awful.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You should look back at your early designs and be like, and I do. I've got sketchbooks where I'm like, fucking glad I didn't go with that.
100%. Yeah.
So it was 1994, my senior year of college, where I started getting tattooed, and at that point, I had refined the idea enough that I knew it was something I wanted to do, but quite frankly, I didn't have the balls. Right? I'm fucking 20, 21 years old, looking at tattooing my entire body, at least I had a scholarship from my undergrad years. I wasn't in debt yet.
Okay.
I fucked up. I went to grad school and got some student loan debt that I didn't need afterwards. But
It'll do to you.
But so it's at 94, and what I had done was I had figured out the general elements of what I would do, like how I would do it. And so I had this design for my back, and to break up the scales and stuff, I had these black markings. And so my very first tattoo was this Japanese kanji for ki. At the time I was still teaching karate. Yeah. And
what belt did you get to in karate?
I was a black belt in Shotokan, Shito-ryu, and I did Kobudo and Kendo as well.
Oh, fuck.
So
that's
a bunch
dope,
of different
dude.
things. Yeah, when I was 26, you didn't want to fight me in a bar.
Yeah, fuck it. That's the craziest thing.
It's 23 years ago. Go ahead, kick my ass now. But no, it's just one of those sort of things where it was a big part of what I was doing, and I really liked the idea of ki and ki. So I had ki tattooed on my shoulder because it was supposed to be that there would be different kanji throughout the black pieces on my back.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Eventually, I sort of moved away from that, so I just went all black over the top of it. It's been little changes, but yeah, from the outset, I only started getting tattooed when I had an idea of how to do my entire body, and that was the goal. And I kind of told myself, and I did for a few years, from 94 to 96, or actually 94 to 96, I was getting tattooed, and I covered a lot of my body where if I needed to, I could cover it with clothes.
Yeah, yeah.
Then in 97, I went down my arms, and I went down to my fingertips with outlines. So that was my first public tattoo. And then by 99, I had my face tattooed. But yeah, like I said, I had sketchbooks for all that. I had planned out, and there were little things as you go. You make little design things. And looking back, I could do better. Like my upper arms are purposely asymmetrical.
Oh,
because at the time that I was designing this, I remember there was a line I really liked about art, talking about like primitive and advanced art.
Yeah.
And one of the things is it used to be that asymmetry was considered a milestone in culture for societies because so-called primitive art is almost always symmetrical. Right. Okay, so when you as a culture are willing to accept asymmetry in art and representation, it signals art. Now that's a very prejudiced view that comes out of a lot of fucked up philosophies. It's kind of been pushed to the side now. But at the time, that's where my head was thinking that, and I was also thinking that I wanted to represent different things in myself. So I'm like, okay, I can put this over here, and so like for instance, I have mom and dad tattoos. Yeah. And people would be like, what's that have to do with being a lizard man? I'm like, well, I'm the only lizard man, so I determine everything about lizard man culture, and we fucking love our parents. But mom is on the left one because she's close to the heart, right? Dad is on the right arm because he's power and strength. I draw from a lot of different symbolism like that and do it. But I could definitely go back and make these better integrated, and there's little things. But that's just, I think if you don't have that, you're probably not an artist. Yeah. There's a certain level of self-criticism that if it's not necessary to being an artist and doing art, it's absolutely necessary to success.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, there's that, like you said, you have to walk that line where you can like criticize yourself, but be proud of yourself because, like you said, a real artist should never you never get off stage and are like, that was 1,000% perfect. Yeah, there's always something little that you're like, I could have done this better, I could have done that. Yeah. So so it was like a 6-year process, basically.
Well, I mean, that was for part of it. I mean, if you're talking about the total process from sort of beginning of tattoo.
Yeah, when did you become like the lizard man? Like that makes, if you get what I mean.
Well, like I said, I was trying to do performance art before that, so I had all these stupid names and all these things. The first reptilian name that I had was Snake Boy, and it's one of my childhood friends. Right after I got my tongue split, I said something to him, and he just flippantly was like, yeah, sure, whatever, Snake Boy. And it kind of stuck for a little while. But the whole boy thing, I knew when we got to the point, when I got to the point of talking about myself in alternate persons. Let's get some ego in here now. All right.
We're talking about primitive, and we're talking in third person over here.
Well, and my thing is, like, I come from a sort of a philosophical tradition, this one I really, where I believe, like, when you're doing moments, like when you're doing performance or just hanging out with your buddies, you throw, or you're taking drugs, that's the big one for me. Like, you throw yourself into the experience 100%. So, if I take mushrooms and go out in the woods and imagine I'm talking to aliens, I'm going to go full bore for it. But my rule is or whether I go downtown and I have a set, if I have a really great set, the thing is afterwards I make myself sit down and rationally break it all down. And that's where you strip away, like, no, I wasn't talking to an alien. I was talking to my reflection in a mirror. Yeah. That was a fucking tree, or that was your dog. You break this shit up. So I'm like, I believe very strongly in both extremes, that if you put them together, that's where you get your success. Throw yourself wholeheartedly with utter and absolute faith into it. And then when it's done, be ruthlessly critical of it, purely and only rational, and take all the emotion out of it, and see what you've got left, see what you've got there, to work with. Yeah. So I'm like, there's a stage thing that got me off on that, because you're saying, like, you never walk off the 1,000% unless you get surprised, right? You can't force the 1,000% moment. It will just happen, and it will sweep you up, and afterwards you'll be like, wow, that's what people. I can remember. I can remember the many times it's happened to me. I can remember the first few times it happened to me, because you don't even realize it. And one of the times for me was in those early days of hosting rock tours and being on festival stages. Yeah. And this is to this day, like, you look at photos. I see the photos of people at festivals like that. If you've never actually stood on that stage and seen what 20 or 30,000 people, humanity looks like in front of you, if you've never felt just the energy, it's hostile. Even when they're on your side, it's scary, because it's kind of like when you've got a really big, people have had really big like dogs like that, where you're like, yeah, it's my dog, he fucks you, and like, he could fuck me up too if he wanted to. Hold on, I got to remember that this guy can accidentally fucking kill me. Yeah, it's got that kind of power to it, and like, I did music Midtown in like 2003, and I just happened to be there, and there were a couple of bands that I had known for touring that were doing the main stage, and like very last minute they're like, hey, bring us up. And I was over helping. Like, it was one of the bands that was opening on one of the first Jaeger tour I did was Stereo Mud. They don't even exist anymore. Yeah. They were on one of the smaller stages, and I went and I stayed with one of the guys at his house just to go to the festival and basically have fun. I wasn't there to work. I was there to fuck around.
Just a vacation.
But like I know who and what I am, so I got to be ready. Somebody's gonna ask me to do something at some point. Yeah. So I carried some small stuff with me, and I did it before them. They pulled me up there, and I'm like, now I'm looking at 40,000 people. I'm looking at so many people that people are watching me on TV screens with a sound delay because the sound doesn't travel from my mics, from the speakers on stage in time to match up with the video they're watching. They're so far back.
That's fucking crazy.
I think they ended up estimating that particular crowd at 60,000 people that year. And I was like, looking at it, and I went out and I went on autopilot. Like I walked out there at first. I was like, fuck me, they might eat me alive, because I felt that energy, and I threw myself into it as hard as I could. And I couldn't, other than like knowing specifically what I did, like I have no real memory. It's like a blackout, right? Yeah. And it's like after I've been off for a while, like the band started playing, right? And I'm still in the energy. I'm like, yeah. I remember like that night back at the house sitting down and just sort of feeling it all drain out of me and being like, what was that? Yeah. Oh my God, and, or even, but small shows. I had a small shows like, and for years my rule was, anything, anywhere, as long as it pays, right? As long as I'm not going to drive to Arkansas and lose money, but I'll go there and get back and break even and do it. I did a show in Southern Kentucky for what amounted to basically the entire town. Like anybody who left their house in that town was at my show. Wow, yeah. But it was still like 75 people but it was such great, and they were so happy. It was one of those shows where, and like, I don't know how much like road work that you've done getting out in the middle of nowhere.
I've been on a couple road gigs,
There are places in America that I know well because I've done them a lot, because once you find them, you'll go back to them. But they're all over the world. It's just finding that place where people are glad you showed up. They thank you. They're like, oh, thanks for coming. Even the people who don't buy a ticket to come to your show will see you at the diner afterward. Like, thanks for coming to town. Oh, did you see the show? No, I don't care for coming, or I don't do a sideshow or whatever. Yeah. But they still want to thank you for coming to their town.
That's really cool.
Those are the places, and it's like, that will, you talk about your night at the store in LA. You talk about doing whatever in LA. No, that's the show. If you're, trust me, when you get like years and years, when you get decades in, there's going to be a point in your life where they're going to be like, you can redo any one show of your career again ever. Which one do you want it to be? It's going to be one of those. It's going to be it's going to be one of those things that was just a moment.
That's so cool. Yeah, wow. That's what I'm looking for.
That's why I say is like lean into that shit. Yeah. Now afterwards, be brutal as you break it down. Yeah. But like when those moments happen, because I feel like that's again what we were talking about. Like when people go through the motions, like, oh, you got to plug this, you're here for this. Yeah. And it's not genuine about it. It's like if you go onto that stage and you just, I mean, that's what open mics are training for, right? Except for open mics where all your friends not laughing at your jokes, even though they tell you that joke is great. You haven't laughed at that joke in 3 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, the fuck are you talking about? That's so cool that you got to perform in front of that many people, and then having those like little experiences like that and stuff. So then, so you started. So you were opening for like the shows and stuff. When did you start doing like comedy? Because when I saw you, I met you at the water tank. And when did you start doing like comedy and all that stuff along with it?
Well, I think so for me, I'll give you like the quick breakdown or timeline of it. Is that so? In 1994, I'm a senior at Hartwick College, and I'm starting to get tattooed. Yeah. But I have no faith in my ability to feed or clothe myself based on any skill I've got. I get a degree in philosophy. It's like, good luck in the world, buddy. Yeah. So I go out and I try the struggling artist thing. And when I say art, I mean all medias. I was trying to do something, drawing, performance. But I'm in a vacuum. I'm in rural upstate New York on the Canadian border, and I'm not trying to do things the right way either. I don't have the right mindset. I understand. Yeah. After about 2 years of that, my mom suggests, why don't you go to grad school so you can get a job and make some real money? Like, with all the best intentions in the world, she sent me back to grad school. But of course, she went to grad school in the 70s. This is the 90s. Now it's the beginning of the end times we live in now because all the regulations are stripped out. The loans are so predatory. The pricing is ridiculous. Yeah. It's like when I took out $30,000 in loans for grad school in 1996, people thought it was nuts. Now people are like, I wish I only took out $36,000.
Like a real nice deal.
They're like, dude, people are like, I could pay for that. Fuck yeah.
Exactly.
So while I'm there, I kind of have this epiphany that I hate campus politics, and the idea of teaching is not going to sit well with me.
Yeah.
There's another thing that might be in the movie moment where I'm starting to perform. I'm doing dive bar shows, and I'm playing rugby. So like at our drink ups and parties, I'm breathing fire, and Jim Rose is now coming to full sort of start his peak touring with Nine Inch Nails. So I'm starting to feel like, wait a minute, maybe there's a chance.
Yeah.
And so in like 96, 97, I'm like, I should be going for this. And then I'm actually started to get a little bit of TV stuff from Body Modification.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit early on about all the sideshow stuff I could do, swallowing swords and all that.
Yeah.
They wanted the body mod. They wanted the split tongue, the tattooing.
Yeah.
Why would you do this? But eventually, I made a name for myself with the stunts. I became part of the Jim Rose circus. Toured for a while and then realized I'm like, I get how these groups work. Like, yeah, one person gets all the money and I get fucked. I should go back to being a one-man show. So once again, I can feed myself and clothe myself. So I broke free from that. In 99 is when I first started using the name Lizardman. We get tied back to that thread because I had Ripley's, right? They're filming me. And at first this producer contacts me and he's like, hey, do you want to be part of Ripley's? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to be part of Ripley's. This is my childhood thing. I'm now completely disillusioned about them as a corporate structure. But at the time, I would have done anything to be part of it.
Fuck yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it does work out well for me. It just it doesn't work out as well as it should because some people are not nice people. But we needed a name from Nita Hook, and I'm like, well, Snake Boy's out because it's too much. The boy thing isn't going to carry well.
Now,
and it's a little bit off. And I was like, I used to be Mistake. Everything I did was art by mistake. Because my name was Mistake. Performance art bullshit.
I like it.
Right? But very undergrad, college art kind of crap. And I was right. Like I said, threw myself embrace that shit.
I love it though. I love it.
I'm sitting around with the producer who filmed all my segments for Ripley's, and we're just running through shit. And I was like, I think that I brought up Lizardman because it tied into like some other stuff, and I'm big D&D and fantasy, so I had that sort of reference in my head.
Just got in my first D&D campaign.
Oh, nice.
A few weeks ago. I'm loving it so far.
I have not actively played since my 20s. But,
okay. Well, I'm in my 20s, so it's a perfect time
I started preteen. I was the 80s scare for Dungeons and Dragons, the Satanic Panic. Luckily, my parents are teachers who know better for that bullshit, but they were like, "Yeah, play Dungeons and Dragons. That seems great." And then the fucking TV special comes out.
You ever wonder, like, I guess because we're like, I'm a whole different generation than you, but I wonder, like, because, like, what my generation of parents, what's the dumb shit I'm going to believe as a parent? Because every parent is, like, naive and kind of idiotic. Even my parents who, like yours, you're saying, like, my mom's a nurse, my dad's a barber, like, they never fell into the stupid trends that, oh my God, what does this text mean? Shit like that. So it's like, I wonder what it's going to be something technology-wise that gets too advanced for us.
Right. And here's the thing, though. I will tell you from my observations being 49 is that it's because, right now, like my generation now, because I got a vasectomy and I hardly endorse that. Much better than kids. But it's my friends that are raising the kids that are there, right there. So it's like, the Gen Xers who, we've got to sit there, it's like, go argue with grandma and grandpa. Right? But they said, like, my family, well, you know what? Some of the hippies didn't flip ideology. Some of them stayed. They'd say, so it's hard to do by generation. I mean, I feel like when we talk about generations, very often we're talking about mindsets. Because there are 70-year-old millennials by attitude, and there are also 20-year-old boomers.
Exactly. My grandparents, like my literal grandparents, like one side of them is like incredibly Republican, old-timey views, and the other is like the most liberal socialist person. And I'm like, you guys were raised in the exact same generation, in the exact same city.
And that's a good point because it's the same fight still happening. So the stuff that you're going to get on kids, the next generation of kids about is not necessarily because it's a new technology you don't understand about it. That'll be the I'm losing the word for it. That'll be the case example. Yeah. But the root reason is still the same because it's always the same thing. And you hit on it where it's like, it's something I understand. There's somebody made this, or it's a Douglas Adams thing where he talks about technology. He goes, anything that's cutting edge technology when you're 12 is something that always existed and always will. Anything that occurs between 18 and 35 is current technology, and you know a lot about it. You could probably get a job with it. Anything that comes along after you're 35 is newfangled shit that shouldn't be.
Wow, that's
So
so true. Because if you even think, fuck, wow.
So yeah, you're gonna yell at kids. It might be about holograms, but it's not really about holograms. It's the same thing that your parents yelled about you about texting. It doesn't matter what the root cause is. I'm getting older and I can see bigger patterns that you can't see yet, and I'm pissed off at you for not listening to me about the pattern you can't see. It's like an invisible tiger, right?
Yeah.
It's like you go like, you don't know there's a tiger on the other side of that door, but I do, and you're going, I'm gonna open the door. Fuck you, old man. And I'm like, please don't open the door. You're gonna let the tiger in.
I get. Wow, that's so. What you were saying about the technology drop off.
Yeah, I think that's Douglas Adams. I'm not sure, but
I can't wait to be like, you know what Douglas Adams said at the next bar, and I'm gonna use that for
Google it first, because if it's not Douglas Adams, it's Neil Gaiman or some other author of that generation.
We were talking about earlier though, where you just take what people say. I'm just
just take
that
it.
It's Douglas. What's his name?
Douglas Adams. Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Has credits for it, and I'm not gonna research it, and I'm gonna tell a shit ton of people about
You know what? Fuck that. No, that's mine.
Yeah,
I know that like many of you watching right now are screaming the actual person who did this. You're probably gonna post the meme a million times and the comments like that. But fuck you, it's mine now. I said it.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll give a credit to you. I'll be like, you know what the Lizard Man told me, and then I'll just quote you on that. I'm gonna
start taking credit for all it. This is one of my wife would roll my eyes. She's probably at home rolling her eyes right now because she knows I'm about to say this shit. But like, I have my pet theory, which is everything human being. It's even further back. It's like everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. Like, no, fuck that. Everything human beings need to know we learned 2,000 years ago. Aesop's fable and Greek philosophy gives you the answers to everything if you would just fucking stop and listen. I mean, but even then, if it's there, you critique it. Like the golden rule is one of my favorite things that people are like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I'm like, nope, wrong.
Yeah.
The rule is do unto others as they want you to do unto them. If you don't know how they want to be treated, ask them and then treat them that way. Yeah. It's better. But the basic premise, I think, is solid, where you're like, that wisdom goes back thousands and thousands of fucking years, and we still haven't even gotten the hybrid. That's like the golden rule is like the step down version of it. It's like, we know you're not going to be so good as to ask people and then treat them nicely. We know that's off the table because you're all dicks.
Yeah.
But maybe you could go so far as to at least give them the courtesy you want.
Yeah.
Right? Like, nope, still not there. Thousands of years later. Fucking still not there.
Yeah, you're right. They're never like, the textbooks are never full of like shit that we just now discovered. It's all shit from like math, science, all that is all old shit.
What's even worse about it is I'm finding this out as I get older. Do you know what old people really love to do? And this is my problem, because I find myself in groups of quote unquote late 40s people, early 50 people, and it pisses me off because they sit around and go, yeah, man, you know what they say, and they say some fucking cliche truth. They go, man, turns out that really is true. And I'm like, yeah, you knew that was true when you were 19 and you fucking ignored it. Yeah. And now you're sitting around going, man, that shit really is true, but you're not doing anything to get people to fucking listen. Like, yeah. But it is true. Like, so many times in the last few years of my life, I found myself going, that was self-inflicted stupidity because I didn't listen to hackneyed wisdom. When I mean seriously hackneyed bullshit. Yeah. You want real practical advice that works for everybody? It's out there. Lift with your legs, not your back. Yeah. You know how stupid that sounds? People are like, ha, ha, ha. Now go watch them. Yeah. Ruin their backs. Yeah. Right? Ask anybody. You know how many people I've seen die of pain medication addiction that started out with a back injury from doing something completely avoidable, right? Yeah. They threw their back out. They got on pills. Now they're fucking dead. And it's like, it sounds trite and stupid, but lift with your legs, not your back, could have saved their fucking life.
That's wild to think about it. When you think down like that.
This is what haunts my thinking right now, and especially during the pandemic, because I got nothing to do but sit around and fucking
just be with your thoughts.
And that I'm already an overanalyzer. I celebrate it, right? Like I said, I lean into it. But now I'm kind of fucking myself up because I walk around and I'll be like, I'll set something down and be like, where's your like, imagine anytime you do something, this is my thing now, is like, imagine you're 5 years old and you're doing it and your grandfather is watching. Because I can hear my grandfather go, don't set that near the edge of the table. It's going to get knocked up. Yeah. Fucking, you're right. Yeah. You know, I can save if you would just listen. Not me. Don't you have to listen to me. Listen to already established wisdom. And you can save yourself health problems, furniture being ruined, carpet being ruined. Yeah. Use both hands. Do one thing at a time. Take your time. All this shit, it seems so fucking dumb when you're a kid. It still seemed dumb to me in my mid 30s.
No,
I'm still
I couldn't
fucking up
agree
these lines. But if I'd fucking listed all the shit, I'm like, oh, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen. That
Yeah.
wouldn't happen. You know, the number of times that I'm working around my house, right, trying to fix stuff, like, oh, I made that worse. Why did I do it?
Yeah.
Why did that get worse? Because I didn't stop and make a plan. What did Grandpa do before he fixed something? He sat down with a piece of paper and literally made a list of the stupidest shit.
Yeah.
It looked dumb. He's like, go to the store and buy screws, right? Why do you have to buy screws on a list before you start the project? Because, you know, you'll get to step 5, you'll be getting ready something for that, and you'll be fuck, I didn't go get those screws.
Dude, I'm like, a good thing my mom has instilled in me, like you were saying, is I follow directions to a T. Like, we just bought a barbecue. And we're putting it together. And I was doing it with my girlfriend. I was like, hey, we have to follow every step by step.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. Could tell she wasn't listening.
Yeah.
A little halfway through, she skips a few steps, and we had to go back like 5 steps because it messed up a bunch of other things.
I got the attachment rack ready to go on. You're like, oh, you can't put it all together until we put the back bolts on that connect it to the thing.
And then it's like you said, where if we just follow the rule of like, hey, follow directions.
And here's the important one there.
We save time.
I don't know if they still do this, Ted. I feel like sometimes I bring up shit from when I was in school and then I forget that we've defunded the schools and people don't get educations anymore.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, yeah, you only got that if you went to school in the 80s and you had a good teacher. But the big one is when they give you the test, right? And there's 15 things on it that you have to do. But the first one says, read all the directions first.
Bro,
and 15.
Dude, I was talking about my girlfriend with this yesterday. That's so
the thing,
insane
right?
that you brought that up. Because, I was telling her, we took a test where it was 15 questions. We all finished, and like 2 kids with nothing on their paper all got 100s, and we were all just idiots.
Yeah, until you got to the bottom, and you're like,
and then there's eraser marks all over. And he's like, I can see. Oh,
Yep.
my God. Yes, we did that. But my girlfriend had no idea what I was talking about. So they
right,
didn't
and
do it
that's
at her school.
if you don't teach it, that's the other thing too, is that we have this sort of, this is the be kind to others speech that I give a lot of times. Is like, you have no idea. You know, people are usually like, oh, they've got a burden, maybe they're abused, or they're like, hey, it doesn't even have to be that bad.
Yeah.
Like, some people just weren't taught.
Yeah,
right. Like,
that's so
I've
true.
literally used to work at a warehouse with people who were functionally illiterate. Like, I was I worked the night crew at a comic book warehouse, picking and packing, like that, and I got promoted because I could read. They didn't fire the illiterate people. They just gave them jobs where they didn't have to read. Right? I literally had a dude where I planted him under a big S sign because he was at the S section, and I watched him like look at the letter S as it was on the sign and look at a comic book with a stylized S and be like, okay.
That's wild. That's like a functioning member of society.
But I'm like, I eventually find out, he can't read. Well, he's never been taught. You can't just assume people were taught to read and then they were so dumb they didn't get it. No, his problem was purely a matter of he had never been put in an environment where people were trying to teach him how to do stuff he needed to learn how to do. Yeah. Like, I also showed him how to put together a cardboard box, which, that might seem like perfectly like. Most people are like, oh yeah, nobody ever showed me how to, but they probably did. You probably learned it by watching someone else. But if you got to a point where now you get a job where you have to do this 100 times a day in your shift, and you've never seen how it's done, you might figure it out. You might figure out a better way, but more than likely you're going to fumble with it until somebody like me comes over and goes, hey, these are easy. If you pick them up by that corner, open them like this, fold, boom, 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 takes you 2 seconds. And they're like, okay, now they've got it. But people have to be taught. You can't assume knowledge.
Yeah, the worst is when people just get thrown into shit. That's crazy you were saying about the illiterate thing, because it had me thinking. The girl I had on the podcast last week, Audrey Scott, she said she went to school in Ohio, and she was in advanced classes. Like, they had her in, like, the Excel, like, she was ahead of schooling the smart people.
Right, she's already beaten the curve. They're not teaching to her yet anymore.
She was a military kid, moved to Virginia. And they were like, you're 3 years behind in education. And then she had to go in all the ESL, like slow learning classes, because education was that different from one state to another, which is insane.
It can be that different from one school to another. So my dad mostly had a military career, but when he transitioned to the National Guard, he was teaching as well. So he was a high school shop teacher, because it was still shop when he was doing then industrial arts and technology. They changed the names, right? My mom was a first grade teacher for almost 20 years, but it's like, she's like, look, now it's gotten to the point where it's not even like school to school. Before it's like school district to school district. Now it's school to school. Now it's classroom to classroom. It's like, hey, is your kid lucky enough to get the teacher that still gives a shit?
Yeah, it's
the
so
teacher
wild.
and like, I mean, right now because it's a healthcare crisis, we're talking a lot about like nursing shortages because there's a lot of nurses that are nurses right now because in 2020 we just waved a magic wand and went, okay, seniors in nursing college, you're a nurse now, without all their clinical rotation, without all the real learning, the real experience, which is a problem. But same thing with teachers, man. We've been going through a teacher shortage for a long time and you've got people that are just hanging on for like, pensions or whatever. But you've also got people that are, they can't make a living as a teacher. You're like, you want them to be a teacher. They've gone to school to be a teacher, but you've saddled them with crippling debt, which means they cannot make enough. If you want them to teach your kids, pay them some fucking money and stop putting them through debt ringers to get the certification.
I mean, most of them are paying out of pocket for their own shit. Like, there's ones that just don't get paid
And that shift is weird to me. So when there was a point where my mom in her first grade class, because again, very rural, some kids have like an hour-long bus ride on like highway speeds on buses because you're coming from these ridiculous family farms. A lot of them are showing up at school too, so poor they're not getting food. And there was no breakfast program at this public school. My mom bought a toaster, started making toast. Like kids come in the morning, first graders, hey, everybody get 2 pieces of toast, like have something to food, a little bit of juice to do it. She did that all on her own, out of pocket. The local news decided to found out about it, do a story. The school board fucking came after her and said, "You're making the school look bad for not providing this is horrible."
Your shit up then.
Well, yeah, exactly. They're like, "You can't do this. You can't do this." She's like, "Why? The kids need to eat." Like, but it makes it look bad and the policy and all this. Like, we can't do it because of liability and all this shit. She's like, "So when do the kids get the food?" Like you guys are focused on all these other problems. Like the problem is we have kids she's trying to teach kids how to read and they don't have any food in their bellies. And your answer to that is, well, we have policy issues. Maybe you can vote on this bill. Like, no. Put food in the kids.
It's so weird that they're like, you know what hill we're gonna die on? Not feeding kids. Like, this is the one that you want.
Public image. That's And that's the other too. Is like some people are worried about public image things like that. Like, I don't fucking care. Like if somebody wants to go at you for allowing kids to get that's the other thing. She's not a proper food service. There's not the health department didn't certify your class. Like all of this shit. Like let them fucking come. I will stand on the front lines and fight for you for that shit every fucking day. Let them fucking come because it's so stupid. It's like who cares what the public perception of your school is if kids are eating and getting educated?
The main 2 points of it.
I hate that vice principal. He's got the wrong politics. Well, I hate that you send your kid to school hungry. How about that?
Exactly. That's wild. That I don't know. Yeah, people always pick like the weirdest shit that they're like, this is what we're gonna fight on. But that's just like companies and business. They seem to never be the nicest people.
I feel like that's too when people say they do it in the name of. So that goes to the heart. Like a lot of the problems that I've had or things that kind of fell out where I felt like I was treated unfairly was by people that I knew, people that I wanted to be friends with, but who felt that their obligation to a company they worked for outweighed an ethical obligation to a person. They're like, basically, somebody made multiple people in my life have made conscious decisions in dealing with me that saving their corporation a couple $1,000s at the most would be better than treating me with the same respect as other performers because I didn't have an agent. I didn't have representation, right? Anybody who went to, some of these projects and shows or who had an agent, the agent knew, they go, oh, well, look, everybody gets paid $7,500. So that's what this spot is worth. That's our market value right now. Go ask anyone who's ever done it for 20 years or 2 weeks. You get $7,500 for this. That's what I'm asking for an agent. Now, my dumb ass, right, is showing up with no representation, thinking like, oh man, and getting to talk with the person who's putting it like, oh, we really like the same stuff, and this is gonna be great if we pull it off. Let's do whatever's necessary to make this happen. $1,500 is great. It's a one-day shoot. What do I care? It's an hour. Normally, I get $1,500 for a weekend back then for doing like 3 live shows. You're gonna give me $1,500 for taping a 20-minute TV segment? That's great. And I walk away like a fucking idiot, not knowing that they're like, ha, we pocketed fucking $6,000. We saved. That was their thinking. And like they're going back to the company like, hey, I got you the Lizard Man for literally 1/5 of what we pay everybody else.
Yeah.
Only because I don't know. And I had this conversation with one of their lawyers, and like literally their legal representation for one of these companies said to me, he goes, "Yeah, that sucks, but like, what do you want to do about it now?"
Yeah,
like
that's
we
so
ain't
shitty.
as their lawyer, he's like, "I'll tell you right now, there's no way this company's cutting a check."
Yeah.
Like, that ship sailed a long time ago.
At least he was a straight shooter with.
Oh
you,
yeah,
like,
here's the thing. He was almost too willing to tell me what dicks everybody else at the company had bad. He was like, "Oh yeah, that person fucked you."
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, maybe this company's not the greatest.
Yeah.
Which because I wanted to ask this too. Which one of the tattoos hurt the most? Like, which part do you think was the most painful?
For location wise, I'd probably say just pure intensity. It's like the nose.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of nerve. A lot of people go for eyelids, but that you feel it. And there's this sense of, oh shit, there's a needle bouncing off my eyelid. If it goes through, it hits me in the eye.
Yeah.
But it's not that painful. It's not that localized. The nose is just intense fire, involuntary watering. Your nose runs everything.
Oh,
the only thing the two other places like that, right behind the ears on the bone, kind of rattles the skull, and this mohawk stripe down the top of my head.
Because it's just dark ink. Huh?
Yeah, well,
really
it's also just that boniness, that thin, and it's like when I say felt it vibrating in my feet. Like I remember laying on the table and just like my wife was there and she's watching my feet, and normally I just lay there like I try and be a corpse when I'm getting tattooed, make it as easy as possible for them. But I was lying there and she saw my sort of feet going. I was like, I can't not move. I'm in so much fucking pain right now, and I was lucky when I had it redone the second time, because you go out with that hat and sunscreen in Texas, your fucking head's gonna fade. The guy who did it had his head tattooed, and he was trying to work as fast as he could. He was literally he's like, "I'm so sorry, brother. I'm so fucking sorry, man. I'm going." He's like, I apologized nonstop.
How long did that one on the touch-up take on the phone?
That was probably only about a half an hour to 40
good.
minutes.
Yeah,
because it didn't fall out badly, so it just needed kind of a go over to get some of the faded spots in it. It's a scalp. It's anything above your neck is hard to maintain anyway.
That makes sense. So that was the most painful tattoo.
That'd be very, intensity wise. Like I always go to those for pain, but
did that hurt more than the teeth sharpening or the tongue or even the eyebrows?
The teeth filing only took away enamel, so there was never any pain there whatsoever. It's just a vibration. The tongue splitting, I had a shot of lidocaine, and that was basically so I could sit still, but it wasn't bad. The swelling afterwards, the 48 hours afterwards, was some of the most intense things I've ever gone through.
Fuck, yeah, I can imagine.
The most pain I've ever gone through in my life, whether by accident or voluntarily, is my implants, though.
Okay.
This was nuts, because there wasn't a painkiller for these. I was cut open, surgical elevator, separates the skin from the skull, makes a pocket, put the pieces in, sew it shut.
Are you awake during this?
Yeah, I'm completely conscious the whole time.
Fuck, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. My implants are the only time I've hallucinated and vomited from pain.
Jesus Christ. That's crazy.
It was about a 6-hour operation. We started, and then 6 hours later I was stitched up and done.
Yeah.
We took a break in the middle after we did one side to go over and do the others, but it was pretty much nonstop. If you want to know how attached your skin is to your face, I could hear it popping loose, and I could see.
Shit, man!
My buddy Steve Hayward, who did the implants for me, is literally like straining, pulling. I'm seeing the veins come up in his forearms. You're feeling the pop as he gets it loose to come loose, and implants are no joke, man.
Yeah, fuck. Was that so? When did you get that in comparison to everything? Was it like piece de resistance or like?
No, I mean, it was a big move because, when I first started thinking about doing this and designing stuff, the implants like mine didn't exist. They weren't a thing. Nobody was doing this. So but shortly thereafter, like I think 94, 95 is when he did the implants on Lifto and Enigma. So I kind of knew they were a thing, and I started thinking about, how can I incorporate this technology? I was designing my face at that point, but hadn't actually gotten my face tattooed.
Yeah.
Which is good, because if you get a tattoo, you want a tattoo over the implant after it's settled into place.
Okay, yeah.
Because even now, the lines don't line up, which is fine. It looks all right in life, but in still photos, sometimes you'd be like, oh, I can see where it's a little bit off there.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. But yeah, so I was well on my way to, my tongue was split. I was performing a lot more, doing bar stuff, but it was early 98 when I had them done. And then it's either later that year or the beginning of 99 when I got my face tattooed.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Oh wait, no, I got my face tattooed in because I always forget, and I should remember that it was my birthday. Because it was close enough that I made a point of like, oh, I'll make it my birthday. Because I always had a birthday dinner with my parents. I was in Albany; they were about 2.5 hours away.
Yeah.
And I would drive back up to that area, and so I revealed my facial tattoo to my parents by having them meet me at the tattoo shop.
Yeah, how'd they feel about that when they saw it? Like,
It was very anticlimactic. Because, and I really should give my parents more credit.
Anticlimactic in a good way.
Because and you're especially, no one is as clever as they think they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's especially true when you think about your parents.
Yeah.
They know more, they see more, they understand more than you will ever give them credit for.
Yeah.
And my mom was just perfect. She was like, well, it was going to happen, or it was going to be weird that it didn't.
Yeah. What a great fucking response.
Yeah. She was like, we were waiting on it.
Yeah, no, I guess
we kind of saw it coming.
They weren't like, no way. You got your I never saw that coming.
Holy shit. Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow. Yeah, because that's something I had written down as I was curious if. Yep. But like you said, yeah, I mean, your parent, you had tattoos
they
before.
know.
It wasn't just like one day you got every single thing.
Yeah, it took 25 years for me to finish the tattoo.
Yeah.
Like all my empty scales are filled in now, so it was literally to the month 25 years.
Have you had any like? I mean, this might be an aggressive word. Imposters, like other people. That sounds. Yeah, you know what I mean. Maybe
not imposters, but like
copycats, whatever you want to call it.
It's not even copy. I don't consider it copycat. Like I wanted more people.
An homage.
Yeah, exactly. I consider it an homage, or it's part of it is like. I made it. I wasn't the first tongue split in history.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first one to use the surgical method that I used.
Yeah.
And I was the first person to help other people go out and get it done, to create a way for as many people who want split tongues to have it safely and effectively.
That's awesome, yeah.
And so that's what I look at. It's like, so I'm like, people, I don't get mad that somebody else gets their tongue split or whatever. If somebody actually tried to be me, that's annoying. Like, I've been impersonated on social media. People started fake accounts.
Yeah.
Where, and obviously all you have to do is be like, take a picture of yourself because you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
The funniest is, this isn't an imposter, but it will always be crazy to me in that somebody put out a casting call using me as a reference. And I ended up seeing it because a friend of mine who was in LA saw it. It was like, hey man, do you have any idea what this is about? They're like, they apparently want you, but they're not trying to contact you or anything like that.
What?
So this guy ends up getting the part, and it turns out they wanted him to play me.
Yeah.
It was for a sketch. They were doing it. They had come up with this comedy sketch idea about a lizard man because they had seen me.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to actually get me because it wasn't really at my expense, but it was sort of at the expense of body modification and otherwise like that. So they found a guy with a split tongue, who was a piercer, and he ended up contacting me because he was like, hey, dude, this is going to sound weird, but I played you in a sketch. And it was like, it was some comedy troupe, like not Groundlings or whatever, LA and Brother, but some group that was actually putting out, internet content.
Yeah.
And they did him up with makeup to be me.
That's pretty
and
cool.
pretend, so they could have me in the sketch. But I'm like, it's weird because I'm like, dude, I actually watched the thing. I was like, I would have done that. I would have been me in that. I would have done that. There's no money involved. Like, I'm not angry about not getting a payday. Again, it's fucking improv comedy on the internet, half a decade ago. But it's just so weird that somebody was like, we're trying to get someone to play the lizard man. And I'm like, I am the lizard man. And they're like, we can't fly you to LA. We can't do it.
And I get maybe at first they thought that you might be like offended.
Right,
by it,
and I'd be like,
but it's
fuck
weird
you guys.
That they didn't even be like, hey, my agent, call his agent, be like, hey, would he be offended? And that, like, no, nothing like that.
Well, and it's easier than that too because there's no agents involved. Like, contacting me involves going to my website and clicking on an email.
Yeah.
Or Instagram, the contact link or whatever.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, it's not like
It's like it's absolutely trivial to get a hold of me. It's harder than hell to get me to actually work, but it's hard. It's easy to get a hold of me.
I totally get you. That's fucking funny. Do you have one? I wanted to ask too. Do you have like a crazy fan story? Do you have like your any like thing wild like that, especially touring with like Slipknot?
Because crazy is like a relative thing. It's like some people are like, oh, just somebody's like over the top into you, or it's like, oh, will they do crazy shit, or did they do crazy shit and then try to impress? That's the one that gets scary, right? Is when people want to impress you. And they start doing dumb stuff. Yeah. Like, I've had people be like, hey man, I've seen your shit. You should have me in the show. Or you should get me. I should be out on this tour. Like when I was doing pincushion stuff. And this is the old rule in life, but especially in sideshow and stunt work, is you can't compete with crazy. right?
Yeah.
I've taken the time to learn through meditation and conditioning to run skewers through my body and have it not hurt too much and do everything.
Yeah.
But there are people out there that will just straight up damage themselves.
Yeah.
Right? I've literally seen a guy pick up a rock and smash it into his own forehead and be like, cool, huh? Be like, okay, that's crazy. I can't compete with that. I'm not gonna compete with that. But he thinks it's cool, and unfortunately there are other people that'll support, like I said, you get enough people in the world, people will support the most horrible shit.
Yeah,
I guess
that's true. Yeah,
I mean,
well,
Gigi Allen's a cult fucking legend, right? Don't be like Gigi. Even if you like what he did, don't be like him.
No, yeah. I guess I never thought about that. Yeah, I'm sure because you do like the sword swallowing and the screw up the nose and like that. People, like you said, they want to relate to you and do things like
or they make this, and it's another thing that I get a lot of times, which is hard because I want to treat it right. Like basically there are broken people in the world. There are people who need help.
Yeah.
And I tend to exist in circles and areas where people who are broken go looking for attachment. Yeah. The outsiders, the weirdos, whatever. They're like, hey, you're weird and you're an outsider and you do strange shit. You might get me. And I'm like, I'm an artist who chooses to do weird and unhealthy shit for the benefit of people's entertainment. You are someone who needs a hug and a drip, or is looking for a social support structure and is willing to hurt yourself because you think those people they don't. The minute you stop punching yourself in the nuts or setting yourself on fire, they're going to get bored with you and walk away. They're not your real friends type of deal, right? Yeah. And so I deal with a lot of people in that situation, and it's the hardest thing in the world. Like, because part of me wants to be like, you poor fucking child, let me help you.
Help them,
but you can't, right? It's like, but then I think back, I'm like, hey, I didn't always have my shit together. I wasn't always in a healthy place. And I did some dumb things because of it too. And when I was in that unhealthy place, I probably wouldn't have fucking listened to me. So now I'm sitting here, I'm like, but I want to help. And it's just a difficult thing. The one of the hardest ones are like, and I get this on a very regular basis, are literal kids, not legally adults, mad at their parents because they won't let them pierce their nose, or split their tongue or whatever. And I'm just sitting here, it's the worst case scenario, right? Because this kid is going to go out and he's going to go to anyone who will tattoo them or pierce them is an unethical scumbag who's probably not very good at what they do, right? And that means like, so they're at greater risk, right? And I'm over here and I'm like, I'm typing out the email and I'm like, I sound like such an old fucking asshole. I'm like, look, your parents are just fucking worried as shit over you. It's not really about whether or not you can pierce your nose and bodily autonomy. It's about the fuck that they're scared shitless for you. And like, you get to be your own person. And this is the time in your life where you figure that shit out, whatever. But sometimes when they're screaming, hey, there's a car coming, there really is a car coming.
Yeah. and like you said earlier with like they just don't understand.
They don't know.
Maybe you're like, look, your parents that are probably freaking out probably don't have any piercings or any tattoos, so they don't get it. Yeah. It's like,
right. That's the real problem with that one too. Is the other side of this equation is you've got somebody who doesn't know shit about tattooing or piercing and thinks, oh my God, they're gonna get hepatitis or whatever like that. Like, if the parents would educate themselves about the activity the child wants to get into, and if the child would, and this is hard because as a child it's just gonna be hard. You're just not going to always accept that there are people that know more than you.
Exactly.
Which I'm sorry, like that's the reality, right? Like it's hard for me now at 49. I'm like, fuck, man, when I was 20, I should have listened to some shit. I should have listened to my own advice too, because I learned very early talking about like how I know the right thing to say even if I don't do the right thing. It's like for years and years I told people like, dude, if you're gonna do this sort of work, like you got to get a lawyer. You got to do like. But I was the exception to my rule. I'm clever enough. I can read it. I understand it. And I signed so many bad releases that I'm like, I read that shit. It's not, they didn't trick me. I fucking read it. I read it. Then I tricked myself into thinking I knew what it meant. So I didn't get a lawyer, and I signed it because I know what that means.
It's just yourself doing it, dude.
And I'm like, that's self-inflicted stupidity right there.
Yeah,
but it's also, it's like, this is more than half my life ago. And I'm like, I've had half of my life now to figure out how to correct that mistake. And I still haven't figured it out. You asked me right now, what did somebody need to say to 23-year-old me? And I'm like, not a damn thing that would have worked. Not a fucking thing that would have worked.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah, there's like, it's even funny, just even at 24, like the things I did at 20 that I'm like, how did I not see that?
That's a function of the age period too. Like that's another thing that where like societally and culturally, where you see misplaced values where it's like, especially as adults, right? As older people, like everyone who is over 30 has gone through their teens and their 20s.
Yeah.
They know what a horrible shit show it is. They know how radically and ridiculously your universe and your experience of life changes on a day-to-day basis because they've fucking been through it. And then not a single one of us takes that into account.
No, exactly,
Bro, I was like,
yeah.
what the fuck is wrong with kids today? Well, number one, they're kids,
Yeah.
right? Remember when you were a kid? It's fucked. Yeah. If you ever run into somebody who's like, man, I had my shit together as a kid, get as far away from that person as you
Yeah.
fucking run for your goddamn life. If something horrible is about to happen.
Yeah, first off, they're liars.
Yeah. Well, like if you're lucky, they're a liar. If you're unlucky, they're so stupid they really believe it.
They think that they're perfect.
And
yeah.
being that close to someone that dumb never turns out well.
No, yeah.
You don't want to be there. That's like there are certain things like very few of them. But if you're in a bar or at a party or whatever, and you hear somebody say something that stupid, just leave.
Yeah.
Just fucking walk out.
No, yeah. That's really fucking good advice right there. You have pet ferrets?
I have pet ferrets. Yeah.
That's okay. How many ferrets do you have right now? One?
Right now we have 3.
Okay, you have 3 ferrets.
Yep.
How is this your first group of ferrets or
No.
what?
My wife had 1 ferret when we met back
Okay.
in '99.
Yeah.
She took in another ferret because a friend of hers was going to adopt it, which of
Yeah.
course fell through. So now she had 2 ferrets.
Yeah.
And so when I moved into her, we had 2 ferrets. We very quickly got up to 5, and that was persisted for a number of years. Now we're down to 3, which is it's a better, more manageable number for us. Plus, I kind of consider our capacity to be 5, and I like for us to be able to take in emergencies and rescues because
Yeah.
we've done that over the years. All of our ferrets right now are rescues.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I've done stuff with and for the Texas Ferret Lovers Rescue, which is just between here and Dallas.
Okay. Yeah.
It's actually closer to Dallas. But yeah, I mean, she had ferrets. I knew what they were. I'd seen ferrets, and I'd held one before. Somebody had a friend that had a pet one. But yeah, I fell in love with them really quick, and they're a lot of work. It's one of those things. Like every time I catch myself talking about how much I love my ferrets and how great having them is, I sort of think I'm like, this makes people think they should go out and get a pet ferret, which is like, no, no. Like serious, you got to think about they're a serious investment in both time and money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they obviously this is like a weird question. Right. Are they like closer to dogs or cats or what are they like?
Well, I mean, if you think about a weasel, a stoat, or a vole outside, that's what they're predators. They're close to puppies. To dogs, the way that they're often explained for people who are getting into ferrets or interested in them is it's like getting a puppy or a kitten that never grows up, but it has some of the worst traits of puppies and kittens, and it never grows up, right? They're going to be hyper. They're going to be it's one of those things. The thing with the ferret is it's either so asleep that you're afraid it's dead. Like new ferret owners routinely go to pet stores and vets with their sleeping ferret and like, I think it's dead or it's sick or whatever, because they go into like it's because they're high level predators. Yeah, you can tell basically where an animal is on the food chain by how much it sleeps.
Okay,
like lions and tigers, right? Get up, burst of energy, get your food and lay around. It's because nothing's attacking them, or almost never. Something.
Wow, I never even thought about that.
If you're a high up predator, you've evolved to be able to take up the advantages of more sleep. There's a lot more that goes into it, but that's one of the basic sides. So ferrets are basically insane little serial killers. They're domesticated weasels. So if you look at their wild counterparts, they go out and they'll kill, like, say, a bunch of deer. Like a vole will. It's a great nature program. That's the example I always go to, where they're watching this. What is it? I forget, some type of weasel. This is a least weasel, and they're watching it go out hunting. It kills a mouse and it takes it back to its tree with its burrow. And they're like watching. And they're like, "Wow, it can't be eating all of these, can it?" So they put the camera down into the burrow. Yeah. And so what it does is, when it gets it, because it needs some food right away, it eats its head, the entire head. They're obligate carnivores. They eat the whole thing. Wow. Hair, bone, gristle teeth. All that. Eats its head, stores its body like cordwood. They go in. It's like a serial killer's nightmare. There's all these stacked headless mouse bodies in the burrow, like setting it up for like later food. And if
that's some crazy Buffalo Bill shit.
If you look at black-footed ferrets, which are they were considered extinct. We just cloned one during the pandemic, so we're getting their population back up. There's reintroduction in all the states. Black-footed ferrets are basically home invaders. They eat prairie dogs. A black-footed ferret weighs a couple of pounds. It's about yay big. It takes down prairie dogs that weigh 20, 25 pounds.
Insane.
And what they do is they go into the burrows and they literally just wipe out the entire prairie dog population and feast on their butt and move into their house. So it'd be like if some dude just came up here, kicked in the door, killed both of us, said it's my place now, and ate our bodies. And when he ran out of meat, was like, go to another place, kick in that door.
That's so wild, dude. That was they're fucking savages.
Ferrets are gangster as fuck, and I love them.
Yeah, but they have sweet moments, or you just live in fear in your house, just feet up off the ground and shit.
Domesticated ferrets are obviously like it's a big difference, right? Like this is the difference between a feral dog and your pet, right?
Yeah.
Well, these Blackfoot are domesticated ferrets. And ferrets have been domesticated for going back to Egyptian times. They used mongoose and ferrets. We use them for pest control.
Okay,
The U.S. Department of Agriculture used to have ferret men. And if you were a farmer, as part of, because we wanted to support the farms, you know, the heartland must produce a certain amount of that. The government would send a ferreter out to your house with a bunch of ferrets or out to your farm, right? And turn them loose, and he would eradicate your prairie dogs, rabbits, mice, whatever you had a problem with. They'd take them out.
What a job.
And then come out. Yeah, you could be. There's a book written about the job. I think we've got a copy back to the house like that. And it's like a 20s or 30s book like that. But yeah, it was one of the early government programs.
You think that was a job like when he met ladies? They were like, oh, you're a ferreter, right? You think ferryman's got hoes or no?
I don't know how well they did in America, but it's still a thing in the UK. They use them to control rabbit populations. You can go on YouTube and see working ferrets. They work with dogs. You put the ferret down in the burrow, and the ferret will kill some ferrets down there, or kill some rabbits down there and drag them back out for you. But a lot of them will bolt. Like the rabbits will be like, oh shit, the ferrets are here.
Yeah.
Run out. The dogs are waiting outside, and the dogs take them down.
Damn.
A good dog and ferret team can clear out rabbit dens, which means taking down a couple hundred rabbits in a day.
That's so crazy. I feel like people we don't appreciate other animals. Like it's like you got like the big animals like cows, chickens, fucking
farm life,
dogs, cats, like where people are like those are cool, but like
working animals.
Yeah, like ferrets, anyone, I guarantee you anyone who's listening to this probably didn't know that ferrets could that's fucking crazy that you can train them to basically go into combat with a dog and wipe out rabbits.
They're
and shit.
active pest control. They're still used. I say mostly in the UK and Ireland. Those areas. Like so you go on YouTube, see a lot of videos. The more modern one, the trivia fact that a lot of people that don't know anything about ferrets or hear about ferrets are like, they'll see it is the Hadron Collider was wired thanks to the help of a ferret. Ferrets were used for wiring. Boeing for years had ferrets they used to wire airplanes because they are insanely intelligent and highly trainable.
That's insane.
You put a wire, you put them in a harness, put the wire on the harness, they'll run the wire through where you pop out the other side, you unhook them, boom, your wiring's done. So they did that for the collider and everything. Yeah, it's they actually the Hadron Collider one is funny because people were talking about, well, what if because sometimes a ferret will just stop and go to sleep. So with training and practice, they got her she was a high functioning working ferret, but they would also just have to have contingencies in place as to where they could get to her, because what if she stopped and pooped in the middle of running a wire?
Yeah, I guess that's
a ferret will do that, especially baby ferrets when they're really excited. That's why they'll get really good about latrine training. Like we have puppy pads in corners. They go to them. And they're really fucking great about it because we've had all these since they were young and trained them. But a baby ferret will often be in the fridge. They'll be wrestling with you, playing with a toy, and they'll be like, "Oh shit, I got to shit," and just go right there, and back to playing like that. So they'll still do that sometimes as adults. If you get them really excited and really going, they'll just be like, no, they'll be like, I'm not walking over there. I'm going to do it right here.
That's so funny. You get them that excited. Damn, well, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, that's cool. Just that you have ferrets. That's unique.
Everybody needs a pet. For me, it's, like I say, it started off with my wife and Sheila. The only reason that we kept going is really her, because now it wouldn't matter with the pandemic, but traveling, I grew up with raising sled dogs. My father and I, we raced Siberian Huskies on sled dogs. Big fan of working animals enjoying themselves. I love a competition. I don't like dog shows. I like agility courses. Those dogs are having fun. Getting put on a pedestal and getting a finger in your butt is not fucking fun.
Some people's fun.
I mean,
mine,
I mean, if that's your thing, that's your thing. But you shouldn't be making the dogs do it, you know? But I was like, it's not fair to the animal. I had a snake because I used to do the yogi act where I put a snake up my nose and it would crawl up my mouth. But that snake traveled with me on tour and shows, and that snake was pampered to fuck because I'm just an asshole about shit like that. And but it turned out that the reason I stopped doing the snake was I started getting, I'm like, this isn't a great existence for this snake. The life that I'm giving it isn't that great. It would at least have a bigger terrarium if I wasn't dragging it around on tour.
Yeah.
So I got to the point where I was like, look, if you want me to do that act, find a pet store, and we'll borrow a snake for the afternoon, and I'll do it because I can get any snake up to speed within an hour or two as long as it fits through my head.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. Like I didn't even know you could put a snake through.
It's actually, that is a stunt that goes back, again, hundreds, if not thousands of years. In India or Pakistan, you might get to see it on a street corner for free.
Wow.
In America, in the 90s, I could charge tens of thousands of dollars for it because nobody else would do it.
That's so crazy. Yeah, dude. I mean, well, it's like you saying, like, the ferret. It's like, you're an interesting man. It'd be kind of boring if you had a dog or a cat. A ferret is a more appropriate animal for an interesting man. Interesting pet, interesting man.
And, I mean, I, for a while, tried to look at taking ferrets at. People who might be big fans of magic will know Harry Anderson, who was a Night Court and everything. Like most people know from TV.
Yeah.
He was a legit magician. And one of his first signature acts that actually got him a lot of attention was an act he did with ferrets. And there was a hidden second. It was basically chop a ferret in half.
Yeah.
Which is funny anyway because ferrets are so long, they look like they're fucking split. When you just see the head and the tail, you're like, is there a body in between that thing? Right? So he did ferret acts. So again, my wife knew about him, was really excited. When I got to meet him, it was great. And we talked about ferrets.
Yeah, that's so cool though. That's a cool love to share like that. All right, man. Well, we're gonna go. We always end the podcast with 2 more would you rathers, and then kind of wrap it up and all that. So would you rather do 5 years in prison straight up? So your 5-year sentence, or do 10 years in prison, but you only got to serve weekends. So obviously it's going to take probably a majority of your life or a lot longer, but you only got to go to prison 2 days a week, or you got to give up 5 years now. So
roughly 100 days a year. For 10 years.
Yes.
Or 5 years straight. I gotta go with the weekends there. I feel like any time out matters.
You're right. Yeah, getting just a break from it.
Because
treat it like a bad job, or like your parents are divorced and you got to go to your dad's house.
I'm thinking worst case scenarios here. I'm thinking like prison, not like minimum. Because I mean, if it's that, I actually had a cousin of mine got busted for weed in the 80s. And was still in high school, and I still kind of think I'm like, did Grandma and Grandpa know somebody? I feel like somebody pulled a string somewhere because he served, he only got however many days, but it was on weekends. I think it was either his junior or senior year in high school. He had to spend his weekends down in county, which again, county, much different than real jail too. That's why I'm like, if we're talking real fucking prison, then I'm taking my 5 days out. I'm just trying to get through 48 hours to get 5 days off, 48 hours
maybe
again.
It's the weekend. The prisoners are in a better mood because it's the weekend. I don't know if there's weekends in prison. Like, does the day of the week matter in prison?
No, I think getting time out is what matters.
Yeah, I think if you asked anyone that's like, if you were in a court and that was like the sentencing offering, a lot of people are going to.
Well, I think too. I'm still kind of caught on that. So I think like 5 years only works out to like 1,800 something days, like roughly 2,000 days. Like, whereas the weekends, again, it's 100.
Yeah, about 100. Yeah,
times 10. That's 1,000 days. So it's less
still
days.
800 days less.
Yeah, it's anywhere from 800 to 1,000 days less. Just doing the rough math.
Yeah, I think just the trick for people becomes is like. I think
having to go in and out would be traumatic,
and I think other people might take that 5 year. But I think when you break it down, like you said, that it's prison, and it's probably better if you're in and out of there and like
getting some time,
some time for your sanity and
because if you're cracking up during 48 hours, but you get some time off, you might get yourself back to it. If you're in for 5 years and you start cracking up at 2, you got 3 more to go, and there's no help coming.
Exactly.
I feel like this is one of those things where what we're doing here is like it's a subjective version of breaking down the price of what a pitchman's selling you something is like 4 payments of $19.95 and then 1 payment of $29.95, and you're like, hold on, it retails for $150 down at the mall. And are you like the shipping and that's the shipping and handling? That's where they get you.
Exactly.
But there's somebody out there going, I don't want to leave the house. I'll pay the shipping and handling.
No, exactly.
So that's what it is. Sure, I'm sure there are some people out there that want to do the 5 straight, but I feel like the math isn't on their side.
No, I completely agree with you. That's the thing about these questions. questions is you ever just like sit down and think about them? They're nonsense.
Oh yeah,
but when you get, but that's the point is that like people, like sometimes people are like, can I just kill myself? And I'm like, well, you don't have to do either of these. So just for the fun of it, let's pick one.
Exactly. We're playing. We've already entered into a hypothetical realm with literally no connection to reality. Yes. Other than your personality. That's what these questions aren't about figuring out anything.
Yeah, no, you were going to
They're about revealing your personality.
Yeah.
This is all these stupid things, all these stupid games. You play that, and you play them with strangers and at parties because that's what you're doing. You're not trying to get to a goal. You're trying to reveal yourself and get other people to reveal themselves to you so that you can have an interaction that's actually based on more than, hi, we're one of the good ones that don't fucking punch each other on sight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, now, because if you're hanging out with people, right? That's the whole problem with society. Is society's whole thing is if we band together in groups and leave out the people who just fight all the time, shit will get better. But now we're all in a room sitting around going like, okay, yeah, you're right. This is better. I'm not worried about getting punched, but what do we do, right?
Yeah.
It's the, you were so worried about staying alive, you never thought about what to do with your life when you have it to live type of questions, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And that, again, as we go, but try to tie like other threads that we've been going, talk about like being a kid and not knowing, being an adult. Like as you get older, I feel like one of the things that you do if you are growing and actually making an effort anyway.
Yeah.
Like some people aren't putting in the work, right?
Yeah.
But if you are making an effort, if you are doing these sorts of things, that what you will end up finding, and I've kind of half lost my own train of thought, which doesn't really matter. I was trying to bring it back to the it's the really percent is you start thinking about it, it's like there's a portion of your life and people are like, well, why don't you do the shit you were in your 20s? Good friend of it, Frodo Santini, who's a sideshow performer I know, Swedish guy, and he quotes some dude, and we can steal this because we don't know exactly who said it, but it's a famous Swedish guy. Nobody knows.
Ours now.
Yeah, nobody knows famous Swedish people. Fuck that dude. He knows shit. That guy. but basically he said, when I was a child, I enjoyed childish things. Now that I'm an adult, I enjoy adult things, and I no longer enjoy childish things. You're at different stages in your life, right?
I can't believe you came up with that right now.
Yeah, I know. It's just boom, man. It's so eloquent, isn't it, man? I fucking got away with words, dude.
Yeah, for real.
I really love the underlying point, which is that, to me, I think the way that I paraphrase it, this is my paraphrasing now that I'm going to take full credit for, which is you have to recognize what stage of life you're in. Sometimes you're in different stages for different things. Yeah. Like you might be in one stage for your career, but a different stage for your relationship. Yeah. Vice versa. The point is, once you get a relationship, getting into a relationship requires different skills than maintaining a relationship. Yeah. Right. Starting a career requires different skills than maintaining and building a career, right? That's why, like, when you're in your 20s and you're trying to get laid, you go down to the bar and you do shit that will get people to come back to your place and have sex with you. Yeah. Once you get someone to come back to your place with you and have sex with you several times, you decide, hey, I would like to keep having sex with them. They come back, maybe we should get a place with it. All right, now you need a completely different skill set. It's like, like, adapt. And I say this as a person who had to go through, believe me, I mean, I'm going to brag a little bit. Look, I was really, really good at getting people to have sex with me. Yeah. And absolutely horrible at getting people to be in a relationship with me or to be in a relationship with, because it was mostly my fucking fault, right? Yeah. But eventually, I recognized that I needed different skills and I worked on them so that now I have a really incredible... the relationships have been hard, the pandemic and all this shit like that. Like, I'm one of those people that are like, the pandemic has done nothing but reaffirm for my wife and I that we made the right fucking choice with each other, right? There's like, because again, I've been on tour, right? She usually only sees me for an aggregate 2 months out of the year. I've been gone since day one. We met, we hooked up on my tour bus. Yeah. I got her a cab back to her place, and I was gone. I was out of this county within hours, right? But here we are 22 years later, happily married, coming up on our 18th wedding anniversary. Congrats, a little bit surprised. Not a big deal. But I mean, my point being is like, look, and now it's so obvious to me. In fact, earlier this week, I was down at Jackalope. Let's get a friend who's bartending there. Yeah. And there was another dude there who used to be a bartender, mutual friends, who started a landscaping company with a friend anyway. And he was talking about getting home to his wife, right? My buddy behind the bar, who's single, was giving him shit about, did she crack the whip? She sent a text, all this shit. Yeah. And I literally sat there for 50 minutes, and I turned to one of the other guys and I go, okay, that was just a master class in why he's single and why he's married. Yeah, exactly. Like, you see what these two guys are doing? Like, and look, it's not that my buddy behind the bar was wrong and the married guy was right. Yeah. It was they were both right, but they both had different goals. Yeah. This guy wants to be happily married. This guy wants to get his dick sucked on a regular basis by strangers, and they're both getting what they want. Two completely different skill sets. and as they say, like career-wise, I see it a lot at open mics and stuff. You see people, doing whatever material or trying to do whatever material, or you watch them online the way they try and promote stuff, and I'm like, all right, I can let that slide, or I can be like, okay, that wasn't a great idea, or I know what you were going for, and if you're still trying to do this in 5 years, you'll realize what a mistake it was. Yeah. But right now, there's nothing I can say to you because you're attempting to achieve this goal with this skill set. Yeah. And no, you need to drop that skill set because it got you to that goal, and now you get to come over here. That's what, but people don't want to start over too. They don't realize that
they want to learn new shit.
Yeah, when people talk about levels to games or skills or careers or whatever like that, what a lot of people miss is when you get to that next level, you really do start over. Martial arts is one they talk about having a black belt and like now, go ahead, because I don't train every day, right? Yeah. But when I got my black belt, there's a traditional thing that was said in our dojo, and they say it in a lot of dojos. Anyone with any martial arts experience will have heard this before. When you get your black belt, they say, "Congratulations, you've passed kindergarten." Because that's all you're doing when you get your black belt is proving to people that now you have the basic skills that they can build upon for you. But you start back at zero. When you go to a black belt class and you just got your black belt, guess what? It's just like being a white belt. Yeah. It's your first day in a new situation, right? Yeah. So it's one of those things like, and if you're performing, right, you're doing open mics. Oh, you get booked on a showcase, whatever like that. Like the first time you get legitimately paid to do your set, maybe it's your 15 minutes you get put on as an opener like that. That's a new level, right? And what happens is that people do this weird thing where they straddle it, right? And this is one of the things that bugs me a lot in art because then people are like, oh, these people are taking $50 gigs, they're undercutting them. And I'm like, you're not supposed to be in that pool anymore. Yeah. You graduated. Yeah, exactly. Like don't go back to kindergarten. Yeah. Right? Not saying like, oh, you're better than that. No. I'm not better than a $50 bar gig. Like that's not beneath me. It's just I shouldn't be competing for that. Yeah. There's plenty of people for whom that's a good gig. For me, that is a shit gig. I need more money. I need more notoriety. I need something that's going to motivate me, right? So so to get better gigs, I need get better gig skills, right? Some people are going out there with their get a gig skill and expecting to book the Paramount or whatever it is. Like, no. You need new skills now. See, all you've done is prove that you are a bookable talent. Yeah. Now you've got to prove that because you have bookable talent skills, you have to prove that you have marketable talent skills and that you understand marketing. You have to prove that you know how to go in and do those morning talk show radios and get those organic feeling plugs in. You've got to show that you can go there and do it without fucking it up, or just that you're responsible. Yeah. I mean, look, half of, I would put at least half or more of the success that I had in a lot of gigs and down to the fact that I just showed up and did them. Yeah. Like, it's amazing how flaky and just out of it some people are.
Yeah, you just got to apply yourself.
Yeah. When I feel like when I say shit like, you got to work and you got to apply yourself, you got to get your shit together, people think it's all about, oh, well, I got to book with that. I need to spend an hour writing. I'm like, no. It's much easier than that. Yeah. A lot of people literally aren't showing up, or they're showing up late. Yeah. I was like, I've gotten people jobs from like doing rock tours and things like that. Who had people show up, and I give everyone the same kind of free advice. To be like, oh man, how do I get in? I go, look, you want to get into it? Every venue wherever you live needs local day stagehands. Here's what you do: show up on time, do what you're told. Don't be a pain in the ass, because touring crews will eventually be like, this guy's good. I've watched. I mean, there's a woman now, Katie, who I remember. I was on tour for the Jägermeister music tour as the host. Yeah, and we went through some had to be the smallest date on tour, somewhere in Mississippi. And she was just there, and she was the production assistant local and the runner. She busted her ass, and the tour manager was literally like, I'm gonna give her a job. We pulled her out of there. Yeah. He was like, he's like, if you can go home and pack a bag, you work for me on this bus right now. We've got 6 weeks left in this tour. Like that. Her most recent gig, she was the tour manager for In This Moment. Oh, that's she's so booking. Cool, but I'm like, but people are like, what did she? Oh, she must have really impressed. I'm like, literally all she did was be on time and follow directions. Yeah. She did her fucking job. I'm like, that's all it takes, man. Yeah. Be on time and follow directions.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It's never as hard.
If you could do that, you rise to the top of the applicants.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. That's a good story. Yeah. Fuck. That's yeah. So many people. It's so hard for people to do them. Like, they act like doing the most basic shit. Like you said, showing up on time and following directions is the hardest thing. And it's really the easiest thing. Like,
because the thing that's hard is what you can't control is like, it's luck. And like that is really, I mean, if I'm going to give success, like, I'm lucky. Anybody, and it's just like, if the person won't admit that they're lying, they're that stupid, like, run for your life. Like, if people won't admit that their success is attributable to luck, then again, run. Because this crazy motherfucker thinks that they make shit happen in the universe by virtue of their own will and work. And that's just not how it goes. Like, because like you said, doing the bare minimum, do the bare minimum, and then if you're lucky, it goes on. You're like, well, what if I work really hard? Well, if you're not lucky, it still won't matter.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, there's so many people that grind their ass off and never make it.
It's a slave mentality. It's a holdover of the Protestant work ethic that has been drummed into, especially because in America we're the evangelical rejects, right? From the Europeans came over, like the religious nuts that were too extreme. Came over, and one of their hardcore tenets that has been baked into American culture is the Protestant work ethic, where if you work, you'll get something. Like, no, you can work your ass off and get absolutely nothing. And you can also sit on your ass, do nothing, and get lucky. Now, those cases are the far extremes of the probability. But as you work your way into the middle, you find more and more effort that doesn't go anywhere. Right? It's like, look, if you get lucky enough to get the opportunity, bust your fucking ass as hard as you can. But don't bust your ass without the opportunity, because you're not going to get anything for it.
No, I agree with you.
I think that a lot of people are becoming more discerning, which gets back to the generational thing. Is by Jake Flores, who was an Austin comedian, who moved to New York, his podcast, I saw something online that he pointed me to, which got me to this one, which I kind of realized I'm like, people are so soft, they don't want to work. And really, I'm like, oh, so you're angry that people younger than you won't allow themselves to be exploited in the same way you were. You're like, hey, just because you busted your ass for nothing in your 20s doesn't mean that you get to be mad at people who are 20 now not busting their ass. I'm like, no, I get sometimes there's an amount of entitlement, but I've seen fucking 50-year-olds be entitled out of their ass too.
No, I agree with you.
So it's the other way. It's like, you got to be able, or you got to be ready and willing to work when the opportunity comes. But you shouldn't just be running around going like, hey, I'm going to do work, because it doesn't come back to you. Like, you need the deal in place. Like, that's the whole thing. Is like, that's where I think that you're getting people to get smarter and smarter about it, or hopefully. I mean, I haven't seen a big change in entertainment. It was one of the sort of chip on my shoulder things when I came from Sideshow. You asked that a while ago. When I started doing Sideshow, it's about 2010. I started actually doing club stand-up. So before that, like, and this is one of those things where I look at it now, I'd be like, oh wow, if I was like seeing me like as the host, I was writing jokes and trying them out in front of metal crowd. Like, I'm in front of 5,000 people about to introduce Slayer, and I'm like, let me try this joke out for the first time. Like, to me now, that sounds like the dumbest, most scary thing in the world, right? But back at the time, I was like, no, it just worked. But it made me good. It also made me really careful about the material I did. Not careful in sort of subject matter, but careful, like, I had to really believe it was good. Because I'd been eaten alive by metal crowds. Kerry used to he's warming up before stuff like that. He would get out if he had a nice place where he could not be seen watching. He used to let me watch out there, because eventually a Slayer crowd he calls it slayering you. He says, hey, he told me, but he's like, everybody who's ever introduced us gets slayered. The crowd just starts chanting our name. And he's like, at that point, if you try to keep going on with your act, they will fuck you hard. But if you just let them take over, you might bring it back. And sometimes I would go back to doing stuff else. But if they start chanting, I'd just be like, fuck yeah, I'm a Slayer fan too, let's go. And you let them run their energy out like that, but you couldn't fight them.
That's
too
so
big.
good though, shit that like learning to work and flow with the crowd is some shit that like I haven't even got to really like work with a ton, and you were getting it right away.
But crowds like that, what I found out was when I went to club comedy, it doesn't translate. The thing that I think is a great example of this is go back and watch some old Kinnison. Now watch a Kinnison set in a club. Like, there's old footage of him at the Laugh Stop in Houston. Watch one of those sets. Now watch him do the exact same jokes in Madison Square Garden. He can't. You watch his Madison Square Garden, the special, and it's been a couple years since I watched it, but I remember the last time I watched it, the first 15 minutes is nothing. He doesn't say words. He just screams, and the audience screams back, because they have too much energy. And he realizes he can't go into a joke. He has, and when they finally get tired of just yelling back at him, he goes right into a joke. But he has to do it. In the club scene, no, he comes out right into a joke, right? And builds up, because they're different. When you've got that many people, that much energy, that sort of thing, it does, like you said, like I was, and I don't want to be so much of a narcissist, but look, nobody ever told me I was shit at my job.
Yeah.
Right? All the people I ever hosted tours for and introduced were like, the compliment I used to get the most before I started going into clubs was, I can't believe I didn't expect it to be funny. Oh, you're so funny. Because I'm pumping my stomach, but I'm getting people laughing their asses off. And I'm telling porn jokes, or I'm snorting a condom, doing pussy eating jokes. And I've got a filthy as fuck set. The 15 minutes with this condom going in and out of my head and over my head like that. And it's one of those things where I can only do it at like special blue comedy. Even for clubs, it's a little too dirty and too filthy that people start to back off.
They can't just like ticket the room and have someone's grandma there.
Right, yeah. It's like if you didn't come in wanting me to talk about like pulling gray pussy hairs out of my teeth, you don't want to like, it's part of there's a grandma porn that evolved into it. Where it's like, you know what to do when you find a gray pubic hair, pull that shit out from between your teeth and keep going. But what it comes down to is that in that environment, it's the crowds are different and they won't work with you. So I walked in with too much energy, right? I the first time I got on stage in the Velveeta room, I acted like I was telling jokes to a Slayer crowd, and I was projecting to the back of an arena while the 50 people pulled up in front of me were like, Jesus fuck, dude, let us breathe. But then I started watching other concerts. I realized I'm like, oh yeah, at a rock concert I can scream the joke in your face and you will love that. In a little club, if I scream the joke, you won't get the joke because you'll just be like, this guy's fucking yelling at me. That's sort of, there were a lot of adjustments like that.
That's so cool though.
It was also
to do
like,
both.
I mean, and it was fun. Like for a while I was straddling both. Like, it's funny, I wanted to do a show at the Velveeta room. And I remember a time this is a million managers ago and stuff, so it doesn't really affect it. I'm not talking about current people that work there. Don't worry, it wasn't you.
Don't get offended, guys.
But I understand now. They said no, and I was like, well, wait. I was gonna play I wanted to do it in a comedy club because my whole point was I do sideshow comedy. In fact, I mean, again, not to be an egomaniac, but I helped create this genre. It's comedy magic, but with sideshow stunts, and that was the motivation. I looked at Amazing Jonathan. I looked at Penn and Teller. They're heroes now, colleagues, people I've met and talked to about it. And I was like, I would literally sell my show to venues by saying, I'm like Penn and Teller or Amazing Jonathan. It's comedy, but the things I do are real instead of magic tricks. And that was a good way to break it and go through. And it worked. But the comedy clubs, I didn't understand how they work as family. They build talent and they cared. So to me, I was just looking at it as numbers. I was like, fuck you. I'll go to old Emos when Emos was on Riverside. And I fucking sold that room out. And I part of me in the back of my mind was like, fuck you, Velveeta room. This is 200 more people than you hold. And I sold it out. That's the point. But now as a comic, I'm like, I'm on old Velveeta room side. I'm like, don't let any random, I don't care how many tickets they sell. Let them go somewhere else. This is the comedy venue for comedy acts that are Austin comedy acts or visiting that respect the thing. And that's what I simply was not respecting the venue. That's on me. But like I said, at the time, it would have been real hard to explain that to me.
No, I totally get you, dude. That's good that like you've taken the time and learned it now. I mean, shoot, man. You've lived an interesting life. Thank you for sharing. I mean, just even a summarized version of it.
That's the goal, man. Don't have a boring fucking story, man.
No, exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
If you're gonna have a boring story, make it a good boring story. Like if you have a boring story because you worked in an office, like an adoption agency, and never took any risks or whatever, well, thank you for getting kids adopted. You have done. You are a good person. We actually need a lot more of you. So this is, since I'm not capable of doing that, the only way I can say thank you is I hope I can make you smile and laugh while you do the boring shit that makes the world continue to work.
No, that's really good. Well, we're going to wrap up the podcast. The floor is yours if you want to promote your stuff, and then I'll kind of wrap it up. The floor is mine. Well, we did it at the top. Let's do it at the bottom. Yep. Check out my book, Once More Through the Modified Looking Glass, available on Kindle now. Yep. If you get lost or forget or whatever, just remember The Lizard Man, put a .com after it, and you'll find my half-ass do-it-yourself website that was actually cutting edge about 20 years ago. back when we were all web designers. Yeah. If you were in sideshow, variety, comedy, whatever in the 90s, you were a web designer. But then, shit got technical and the real nerds took over and I can't do shit anymore. So other than that, listen to podcasts, support young people, go do art, put a fucking mask on and be safe. Fucking I know. Good message, guys. If you can't find it, all the links are in the bio for his book, his website, all that stuff. Go check it out. Give him a follow. Stay in with the stuff. Hey, man, thank you so much for doing it because this was fun. We got to have a conversation. You treated me like I was just, like just another performer, not like you were higher than me or anything. And it's cool because, like I told you, when you're the king, it's okay to let all the peasants think they're equal. It's all right. Thank you for letting me in your kingdom. I tell you, I know all the right things to say. That doesn't mean I believe them. No, but just you're someone that, like I told you when I met you, I grew up seeing your picture at book fairs and stuff. So it's an honor to have you on this podcast. I really appreciate that.
That's one of those things where I love hearing that. I mean, sometimes it does make me feel fucking old.
Yeah.
But it also makes me feel good where I'm like, oh, well, that means like the shit you remember from your childhood has some significance, right? When it's that far away. So I'm like, hey, I made an impression.
No,
that's
100%.
Good. And you know, like if it's an influence, talk about like treating people. I'm like, look, if there's anything that comes close to the egalitarian, that's the word, egalitarian ideal of, you know, we're all in this together. It's arts or creativity because there's no telling who's going to have the brilliant idea or the insight or whatever.
Exactly.
We're all just sort of fumbling around going, let me just grab some of that. And you could say like, with time and skill, you get good. So you're like, you know, you can, the guys who give me the newspaper or rip off the headline. Okay. Somebody's, because they skill, and it's like improv. You learn formulas and you learn connections like that. Or you get more life experience and you're like, oh, I can reach out to more people because I can explain this to a greater group. But at the end of the day, it really is just a fucking crapshoot.
Exactly,
it's like reaching for something. Let's go. So anytime people say like, oh, I'm above, or like that's just it's like, look, all you may have done is okay, maybe you've made more money, or maybe you've had more viewers or listeners or whatever like that. But that doesn't speak to the quality of what you've done.
That's true.
Right?
It doesn't treat the quality of person you are.
Fucking more people have eaten government cheese than the finest brie from Spain, right? Like, so does that make it better? No, it just makes it the cheese we had. Right?
Exactly. That's true. Well, thank you again for doing it, man. For the listeners, guys, thank you for tuning in. Whether this is your first time or your 71st time, I appreciate you. For me,
is that how many episodes there are? 71.
Yeah, 71.
Okay,
I always
cool.
do that. I've been doing it since episode 1. Whether it's your first time or your second time, and it's now like part of the outro. So
I was just say, it's a good gag, but only if you keep doing it.
No, I don't think I've missed it yet. So
a bit more important was when you got to 69. Did you say nice after it?
Oh, dude, the episode was titled 69. Was just the name of, because I was so excited for that episode. But yeah, guys, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. For shows right now, the one I got booked for August is August 29th in San Marcos at Half Baked Comedy at like AJ's CBD Lounge. Check that out. I'll have more dates coming up, and I'll keep you guys updated. Other than that, thank you guys for listening, and most importantly, thank you for letting us be your last resort. See ya.
This has been a Your Last Resort production.